Waivers, the Mudcats parent company, will present a set of concepts and recommended next steps to comply.
Put this close to me to make sure that it is being heard and recorded. And thank you may be familiar, Five County Stadium is home to the Carolina Mudcats and has been since 1991. Lease for the 2023 season. So currently there is a
terrific partnership with Emily, the folks at the county, with Joe, the staff here in the town, and I've enjoyed coming here. The facility standards actually existed when minor league baseball governed all of these affiliations. They just unsuitable to host minor league baseball. There can be financial penalties. We worked with a professor at Wake Forest University on developing that. It showed a $5 million plus impact on the area. And I think one of the most important things in that is that 47% of the fans that attend the games come from outside of Wake County. So this, as a business model, and for the town and for the county, this is all visitors that are coming into the county that without Five County Stadium and without the Mudcats, that business is not coming in. So obviously that's very important to our business. We think it's very important to the county, very important to the town as well. And then how we get there, looking to improve the fan experience, plus meet the PDL standards. As part of this new relationship with Major League Baseball, we now have these tools available to us that allow us to better analyze ticketing data. So we know 47% of fans are coming from more than 40 miles away, but how do we reach them? How do we get them to come to more games? What are their interests in non-baseball events? The population growth, obviously we are very, very aware of all of the population that's coming out this way and what's happening in this area. We're excited about it. We've seen it. We've been here for 5 years now. We see with the play ball, the 9, opportunities to reach demographics that typically have not come out to Major League Baseball or minor league games that we're excited about. We're looking to go Monday through Thursday, but if we can pack that place for the weekends, it's going to help the other days as well. These are just some photos of some of the days that we've looked to implement. The education days are exciting out there as well. If anybody's been to a game, they're loud. We'll have 3,000 to 4,000 students out there for the afternoon games on a Monday or Tuesday. But a lot of fun, and we get an opportunity to bring a lot of kids out that may not otherwise have an opportunity to come to a game. And then again, we just, yes, I am from Milwaukee. I get that. But I remember the first time I came to a Mudcats game, and I walked in, and I was wearing my Brewers credential, and I said, I'm with the Milwaukee Brewers. And the woman at the gate, I can't remember, is her Doris? Is that her name? Ms. Carol. And she said, well, I'm a Brewer. The significance of the investment that it's going to require, but we're excited about it, and we're bullish on the town.
Thank you, Tyler. The next few slides, I'm going to walk through. This map maybe should look familiar. We've tried to number everything to show you along the way where we would, from a big picture perspective, be looking to make improvements. Again, our work to date has been at a 10,000 foot level, so I want to just kind of level set you all with that expectation. And not in the details, because we want to get the concepts right. We want to get everybody on board with the concepts before we start moving forward into the details. So what you're going to see from here are a series of 5 slides that have different levels on them. The first 2 are associated with the PDL improvements, and then the final 3 relate to some of the fan experience opportunities that exist at Five County Stadium. So level 1 is what we have termed the base improvements to bring the stadium up to the PDL compliance. This is what I like to refer to for my board as checking all the boxes from the assessment, all the things that the assessment said needed to be done to bring the stadium up. This involves renovating the existing home clubhouse for the visiting team up at the top, renovating the hitting and pitching tunnels. Out on the right field side, we would take, I think that is the existing visiting team clubhouse, and that would be completely renovated to be the new home clubhouse with female facilities. One of the things that we didn't mention specifically, but now, you know, from when the stadium was built in 1991 to now, you have a lot of female trainers, female umpires, and the stadium hasn't evolved to have a place for them to do things like change clothes, like have a locker room. So that is some of the items that are addressed in the PDL. And then the other thing on here is the playing field and the dugouts. That does include lighting replacement, and then a new command post and some security upgrades. The next level is what we call PDL level 2, and this is called enhanced improvements. And the difference between level 1 and level 2 is the clubhouse for the home team and the hitting and pitching tunnels would be stacked in what you see is item number 4. That would take out some of the seats along the first base side and replace those with a multi-story clubhouse. What that does here is creates a level that is matches the current what I call clubhouse suite level, and creates an opportunity that you will see in the next slides for some event space, multi-purpose space that could be used as some fan experience enhancements, that an area where attendees might want to gather. So we'll get into that in a minute. What I want to make sure that I note here is that for level 2, you still need some of the improvements that you saw on screen for level 1 plus level 2 to achieve the PDL enhancements in this space. So with level 3, we get into the fan experience improvements, and this fits nicely into what we just talked about with level 2. And what you see here is the blue shaded area on item number 4, which would create a rooftop event deck. And so this would be a place where you could have a restaurant or a bar, you could have seating out there, you could have gathering spaces that could be used on game days, potentially some opportunities to use that as flex space or event seating on non-game days or in the off season. Level 4 is a shifts to the third base side and focuses on a public playground area. This would involve taking out the seats along the third base side and creating what could be potentially a multi-story playground area. If you've been to other minor league ballparks or been to other sporting venues, you've often seen recently that they have areas where families can take their kids, where parents can take their kids. I said this at the August 8th meeting. I love baseball, and I drug my kids to a lot of baseball games when they were growing up, but they did not necessarily like sitting there for 2 or 3 hours. So you see a lot of stadiums putting in playground areas as a way to draw fans during the game, during a weeknight, as well as something that could be open year-round. So even when the Mudcats aren't in town playing or it's the off-season, it's something that potentially your residents can have access to. Some other minor improvements that we've included at this level are some upgrades to the concession areas with some, and some dedicated EMS space in the main concourse. Level 5 is the final level, and this includes some upgrades to the Sky Lounge, what used to be known as Cattails, and renovations to the suites. I think Cattails was put in the mid to early 2000s, and then the suites have always been there, but they could definitely use a facelift. I don't think that they've had significant improvements since they were put in. This slide shows some examples of what I just reiterated as potentials for levels 3, 4, and 5. I'll start in the top left-hand corner. This is Phoenix. This is American Family Field. I believe this is your spring training facility. This is an example of a rooftop event or deck space. This is, again, a place where people can gather, get something to eat, get something to drink. They don't have to be sitting in their seats. The top center is the outfield patio and deck at the Durham Bulls. Again, this is just another example of sort of that congregating space. It's hard to see in that picture, but there are even like picnic tables there where families can sit and eat instead of sitting in their seats. The top left-hand corner is from Kannapolis. This is Atrium Health Stadium. This was completed, I believe, in 2020. It's the Kannapolis Cannonballers. They are actually an opponent of the Carolina Mudcats, and they put in a playground and splash pad at their facility. Along the bottom from left to right, the first one is Charlotte Knights. This is an example of a concession upgrade area. This is called a grab-and-go concession. So if you just want a prepackaged snack, a drink, you can grab it and go. You don't have to stand in line and wait for your food to be cooked. Bottom center is the Fayetteville Woodpeckers. This is Segra Stadium. This is also an opponent of the Carolina Mudcats. This is an example of their outfield patio area. There's a bar in the background, and then there's sort of like patio seating. They have rocking chairs out there, cornhole, so they have places where people can not just sit and watch the game, but congregate. And then the bottom right-hand side is the Charlotte Knights. Again, this is their lounge area, so it looks out onto the field, but it's a place where people can, again, gather, congregate, and in the heat of the summer, they can use this to kind of cool off. Based on the work that's been done jointly between the county, the town, the partnership with the Mudcats and the Brewers, at this time, what we are recommending is the PDL enhanced improvements. So that's level 1 and level 2. And this is taking that clubhouse concept, taking out the right first base side seats, and making the multi-story clubhouse, hitting and pitching tunnels, and then leveraging for the future the space where we can create start to create some of the fan experience improvements. So we feel like this is the best value for the money that would be invested. We do know that that requires a collaborative approach from all parties to be successful. Some big things off the assessment first, and then work around the margins toward the end. We also need to begin drafting the third amendment to the lease, which would continue the partnership with the Mudcats and the Brewers. Also maybe any needed updates to the ILA that the county has with the town. And then the last thing that we've bulleted here is determine whether a new lease document might be necessary or required. And Joe, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
The appropriate personnel to answer those questions.
Start with Commissioner Laux.
I guess one of my primary concerns
Responsible for managing them. I think you all, as the tenant for those 65 days, and certainly some stuff in the off season.
With the staging, the artist fees, the staffing. Stadiums, when I say smaller, 6,000 is smaller. When you're looking at a AAA stadium that has 15,000 seats, the economics become a little easier because your costs are more fixed. We should be hosting college or high school graduations on the field. There's any number of things.
Okay.
Is the 6,000 that you referred to with the removal of the seats?
It will make the ballpark more intimate. It will turn a crowd of 4,000. That place will appear to be packed. Now a crowd of 4,000. It looks nice, but we're doubling down on that now, and the guys will tell you. We've been on the phone a lot the last couple of weeks, just talking about doing another round of research.
I think it would be a good idea that we do a new lease and stop adding the amendments to what we have had since 1991. So I think that's an important step to make.
And then the town takes care of most of what's outside in the stadium, in the parking lot, as well as some youth. Those are kind of the big things that I remember the past few years. Yes. So that is what's currently available. Going back to this recommendation for doing PDL, the level 1 and 2 enhancements, we are going to have to get creative, and the county does understand as 85% owner, we'll probably be the one to take the lead on that, to leverage, our debt capacity, leverage our revenue sources, to take the lead on that in that process.
Thank you. One quick question also. I was reading through the lease there again, and it states that the town, if I make sure can understand, they can also sell souvenirs inside the stadium. Is that correct? And then the Mudcats would take 25% off the sales, and everything else goes back into the, I guess we'll say county and town now pot. Is that correct? Or am I...
I think that has probably been removed in one of the amendments. My understanding is that all the souvenirs sold are sold through Mudcats LLC or the bait shop, and they retain the revenue.
That was taken out?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Baxter?
Yes. So here's the big question. Well, actually, we all have big questions. Here's my big question. What percentage is Major League Baseball, the Brewers, willing to take on? Are you going to be putting forth 33% of these upgrade costs, or what expectations, do we have from Major League Baseball?
So the Major League Baseball will not fund any of this.
So it's going to be the Brewers.
Yeah, just clarifying, and you do understand. It's Major League Baseball is the governing body. The Brewers are a team in Major League Baseball. We own the Mudcats, but we are not Major League Baseball in terms of the governing body. The best description that was given to me when I was handed this current role as a communications person with no background on how to necessarily manage a minor league baseball affiliate was when Emily's staff said, if you take the stadium and you turn it upside down, anything that falls out is the Mudcats' responsibility. You have to pay for that. Anything that stays bolted in is the county-town responsibility. That made it very simple for me. If we're doing all of these upgrades, we haven't put a pen to paper. I'm not minimizing, certainly a very high percentage of it would stay bolted in. Some of it's going to fall out. A lot's going to fall out. So it's going to be a significant contribution for us. To say what percentage that is or what amount that is, we haven't put that kind of a pen to paper yet, but it's going to be a significant amount. Even if we just do the PDL upgrades, we know it's going to be a significant amount.
Okay. Thank you. I have another one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do have a question about the playground area. I'm not sure who's best suited to answer that. Okay. So my question is, I just need to understand that playground area. Who's going to be responsible for staffing it? How is it going to be secured on non-game days? And how are you going to regulate access if that were to be a choice, a level that we decided to go to?
Let me step in and jump in. So, Commissioner Baxter, those are great questions. I think one of the things that, from our perspective and our recommendation, is moving forward with the PDL, knowing that the playground is what I'm going to call slightly longer term vision, right? We have to get the PDL done by 2025. The playground is a nice to have, and I think it would be a real community asset, having seen that in other areas. But until we get the PDL pieces done or start to make headway on those, then I think those questions would be questions we need to ask. I think it would be great, we could probably contact the city of Kannapolis because they have a playground at their stadium that is open year round. We can see what their model is and see if that's, something we would replicate here when we get to that point.
I'm just trying to look out 20 years from now or 10 years from now to try and understand how things are going to be working.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Are we going back around again?
You
I'm
have
not really
another?
sure how this is going. Do we just keep asking questions, or
Do you have more questions?
I have, I think, one more question.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. And so, as far as the lease term, is that something that we need to be thinking about right now? Or is that something that once we get the contract up and going, things are going to be ironed out more then?
If you've got an area of concern or interest in the contract, I would specify that now so that when we're talking with the Mudcats and Wake County, so if there's specific components that you think need to be looked into or updated, we want to hear that now.
Okay. Thank you. So I absolutely would love to see a lease term that's on the longer side instead of, I know at one point we were told that, 1-2 years max, but I feel like honestly, if we're going to be asking Wake County to pony up, the town of Zebulon to pony up, and for the Brewers to pony up, we need to have a lease term that is more looking along the lines of headed out to 2030 than 2025.
Understood. And with this type of an investment, that is absolutely 100% reasonable. I don't see any model where investing 15 million minimum, plus if you're doing all the fan upgrades, where it would make any sort of economic sense to do a 1 or 2 year lease. So I think that would be as part of doing a new or cleaned up lease, however we want to call it, amended lease, we would absolutely look to do the long-term extension. And I believe right now, even if we stayed with the old lease, I believe we go through 27 and then there's one through 2032. It gets a little muddier with the current PDL system is only in place through 2030. It's guaranteed to be in place through 2030. So Major League Baseball is guaranteed to be the governing body of this through 2030. We all have to work, and all municipalities will have to work through these significant investments if a municipality and a team want to extend past 2030, we have to figure that out. We have to figure out how can that be actually written into a lease? Does it have to be a separate agreement that, yes, we're guaranteed through 2030, but there's going to be another X years beyond that? The goal would be to do a long-term lease extension with these improvements.
And so am I understanding correctly that by entering into a lease, let's say until 2030, that would kind of lock in what Major League Baseball is, they wouldn't be asking for any additional upgrades once that lease is signed for the lease term? They're not going to come back in 3 years and say, sorry, we changed our mind, you're going to have to put in another 8,000 seats and $10 million.
Yes, I can't speak for Major League Baseball. I know that they are very aware that these are major commitments that are going on in these 120 markets. I mean, there's maybe a dozen stadiums that are fine, but there aren't many. There's some that were built as recently. I was in Fayetteville today. They have issues, and that ballpark just opened 3 years ago. So I am not aware of any plans for them to come back and say, okay, now we issued these standards, and then a year from now they're going to say, hey, here are X more. They are very aware that these are very difficult decisions that municipalities are going through and trying to solve, and to come back on the heels of that, I think they're very aware of that. I can't speak for them specifically.
Because knowing that, we are not a Durham Bulls size town. We are a 5-county Mudcats size town. And so for our portion of the investment, whatever that's going to be, that's a significant ask for us. And so I need to feel comfortable that, that PDL is not going to change. Even in 5 years, we've got to know that major outlay of funds is an investment that we're going to see some returns on for quite some time.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I think that's something that gets addressed when we are drafting the lease.
Okay.
And it would be incumbent on us to go to Major League Baseball and say, how are we handling this? Okay? And Major League Baseball will give us direction on how that language, what can be written into it. So before any lease is signed, long before any lease is signed, there would be an understanding of how that's handled.
Okay.
Does that?
Good.
I think that's about as knowledgeable as I am about it, and as far as I can go without actually getting more direction from baseball on where they see the future.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe my final question or speaking point is that currently our stadium lease payment, the money that we receive, is $4,700. And I think that there needs to be an expectation from all parties that Zebulon is going to be asking for a much more enhanced portion of the, a lease payment consideration, as well as more of a negotiation as far as like parking revenue and things like that.
I think it all gets looked at in the big picture. What is going to happen at the stadium? Or is it going to be the PDL improvements? Is it going to be the PDL plus the fan improvements? And again, in a perfect world, if we're doing all of this, then we have a great opportunity to continue building our business. We feel very strongly, from a business perspective, we need some fan improvements in the stadium. It is beautifully maintained, but it's dated. It needs some help. With these fan improvements, we can grow our business, which then gives us opportunities to grow our revenues, which then gives an opportunity to look at those types of things in the lease. So that's certainly an understandable expectation with a commitment of this type, a financial commitment of this type, that all of those things would be looked at. Okay.
I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Miles?
I just want to piggyback off what Commissioner Baxter says. Some of the things that I would like to see in that negotiation form would be definitely as we grow, the town currently gets a certain amount of tickets per game. I would definitely I'm sure that would come up, that number would be kind of like raised a little bit with our growth aspect, so we can kind of contribute to the fan base, I guess, say, with citizens, things of that nature, that part. And then one thing coming to mind would be if we would eventually go to possible concerts, things of that nature, would you have like RV hookups as people are coming in? As you stated in your 40% or what you guys call day trippers coming in or whatever, standing night, would that eventually kind of like be in the process of that too? Like RV type things?
In terms of RV hookups, and I am not very familiar with,
Okay.
my wife will kill me if I ever tell her I'm taking her on an RV trip.
Okay.
I would love to go, but I think that RV hookups probably require a lot more infrastructure to
Okay.
do. Am I right on that?
That I don't know.
You all would probably know better than I would, but I think you need power, and so again, I think it's a great idea, but I don't know what kind of costs those are and whether or not that would be a priority in doing something. It's a great idea. Okay. I just don't know what the costs involved are.
Okay, and this may be a very simple something. As far as like, okay, I looked up the Brewers made $269 million last year. Is there like no obligation, they feel no obligation to take some of the cost with the stadium, or is that what I'm to understand?
Where are we hearing that number I can tell you is absolutely 100% off. I
Okay.
mean, the pandemic, just like, we are not going to sit here and say we're the only ones hurt by the pandemic. Everybody
Okay.
was. But the pandemic was devastating to our business.
Okay.
And we were still at restricted capacity for a good part of last year. So that report is way, way, way off. I can tell you the Mudcats, and I say this in a positive way, we were well into a seven-figure loss when in the first year that we operated the team. We have shaved that down now. Our operating loss for this year, we're expecting it to be right around $400,000. So that's our annual loss. I don't mean that in a negative way. We have come a long way. We think we can We think we can continue that, but it's getting harder. And we think the way to get to make the runway to this being a great investment for everyone is that with the growth of the population in the area, everybody moving to the east side of this county, with an upgraded stadium, an upgraded fan experience, and with these marketing tools that we're going to have access to, plus some of these outside events that hopefully we can program, we think that's where the ceiling goes from here to here. Okay, that's what we love. Without the fan upgrades, can we make some more improvements? Yeah, these guys are great. I really, they've been. I mean, Eric goes back 20 some years now, and David has done a fantastic job on the business side. There's a little more blood in the turnip, but not a ton. We're thrilled. We're up 30% in ticket sales this year. We're thrilled with that. Can we go up another 10% without anything? Maybe. I don't know. With the fan improvements, how much more can we go up? I think we can go up a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Clark,
Nothing. I'm just-
Commissioner Harrison,
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner Laux.
This is kind of a what-if procedural question, but I know the current lease says Zebulon can only use the stadium 5 nights a year, and I know we have a movie night in the park, which has actually been very successful. If I were to ask the Park and Recs Department to move the movies to the stadium rather than the park, what mechanics, what would move that? And who would staff the parking lot? Would the concessions be open? How much heads-up notice would you need? Because we have a lot of moving parts, and that is a very simple thing to do, is show a movie, because the screen out there is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
The upgrade was great.
How often is that done? Is it just a one-time thing? Or
No,
is it
it's done
monthly,
throughout the
or?
summer. I think there have been 3 so far,
Okay.
I believe.
So-
Sheila, is it 3?
Yes, it has varied from year to year. So this year we had some in the spring. We'll do 3 this summer, and we're going to continue some movie events throughout the winter as well. That'll be indoors.
Okay, thank you. So this actually came up during one of the games I was at recently. We were commenting on how good the screen is, and we started thinking about October, and a couple people sitting near me said, wouldn't Halloween movies be kind of neat out here if the concession stands were open, and even if we only had a couple hundred people to start off with, we're using the venue.
Absolutely.
You're getting additional revenue through concessions, and we're getting more people out there. And as you say, as you get someone out there on the weekend, they may come on the weekend or during the week. And if they come for a movie, they may come for a game, and there's kind of a critical mass you get started.
Right. Is there a charge for the movie nights, or is it? Okay, so there is a model that can certainly work, whether or not there's it could be an admission fee, or it could be free admission. What you have to do is look then at the cost of the staffing, whether it's parking, concessions, security, and then you, as you said, you open the concessions, so you have revenue that's coming in as well. So we just have to look at the numbers. It's eminently doable. We just have to look at the model. It may be something, if the town wants to own that event. I think it's defined in the lease that the town gets a percentage of the concessions. Do you know? Okay. For example, and I won't use our lease as an example, but let's say there was an amended lease and the town gets 50% of the net revenue for concessions. So you subtract the cost of the hot dog, and the town and the Mudcats split what's sold. The town would then take the portion of their sales, pay for the staffing that we have, hopefully turn a small profit, but have a great community event. And again, we would look at a revenue split on the concessions. And so the goal is that you create a great night, and you do it in an economic model that makes sense, not necessarily to make money, but so you're not losing money, those are great events. That's a programmed night at the ballpark. And like you said, being able to do that at the ballpark, whether it's everybody sitting in the seats or maybe everybody sits in the seats for free, but you allow 100 people to pay $10, they get to sit on the field. I mean, there's all sorts of different things you can do to have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, movie night
I'd like to have us address those specifics in the lease, and then I know the
Absolutely.
county asked for a marketing plan. Along with that, I'd like to see a calendar of events for the next year. It would be a wish list, but if we're really going to use this, what is a calendar of events?
Yeah.
What could we do month by month?
The guys have an exhaustive list of events that could work. Then it's just a matter of finding out who would own the events. Can you make it work economically? Can you make it work so that the field is not compromised too much? And just making sure that it's doable and that we can staff it too. I mean, staffing is always a challenge, but to your point, we would love to have a master list. We have a master list in Phoenix. Now again, Phoenix, we know it never rains. So that's great. We know if we're gonna have a movie night, we have staff that comes in there, it's not gonna rain, it's not gonna get rained out, so we're not gonna be out of pocket on anything, or a promoter's not gonna be out of pocket. Same thing with a concert. You know that concert's gonna happen. Any outdoor venue outside of Arizona, you always have that risk of rain. So, but they've done movie nights, they did a concert this year, they do a couple of Mexican League baseball games that come in and play. So I won't say that it's a huge number of outside events, but they do program it, with a couple of events per month. And I certainly think we could do that here and hopefully grow that to even more.
Great, thank you.
I had one about the security aspect. Just how would that involve our police department with the security upgrade? Or would it?
Yeah.
Somebody else can correct me if I'm misstating this. The security improvements that are part of the PDL are more infrastructure related. That has to do with, I think, cameras and rewiring. There are places in the stadium, I think, that don't have cameras now, and so that's what that security enhancement is for. And then a command post where I think your security would be there watching monitoring the game. So it's not necessarily a staffing issue related to your local police department.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And could you explain maybe like the differences between the 1A, 2A, 3A, and would that affect anything as we move forward?
So the Mudcats, when they first moved here, were AA. I would say, Eric, what year did they move to Class A? Do you remember? 2010, 2011. Okay, so 2010, they were moved to Class A because when they were AA, they were the farthest north and farthest east team in AA by a long shot. So the travel for teams coming here, but more so for the Mudcats, for them to get to other cities, they were traveling to Huntsville, Alabama, they were traveling to Memphis. These bus rides were, anytime they were going out of town, they were hopping on a bus for 15 hours. So typically what MLB has done, and they did it at that point, is they look to make leagues that have geographic sense. So they took the Mudcats, moved them into Class A, and then in 2020, as part of this PDL standards, when MLB came in and took over the governance, they reorganized again and moved the Mudcats to what's called low Class A. There are two levels of A. There's Class A and there's low Class A. It means that your players are younger. And they do it for geographical reasons. So we're still in the leagues. Most of the teams that we're playing were Class A until 2 years ago. Now they're low Class A. you're actually seeing the best talent. I think you can make an argument. You are seeing a lot of the best talent that's coming right out of high school and right out of college. For example, right now we have our number 1 draft pick. Number 1 and number 2 draft pick are playing here. Until recently, we had a guy named Jackson Churio who just turned 18 years old. He was playing for the Mudcats. He was moved up, but he's ranked as the second best prospect in all of Major League Baseball. That doesn't mean he's 18 years old, and we're very high on him, but he's ranked as the second. So it doesn't mean you're getting a lesser quality of talent. You're getting them when they're younger, and it's an exciting brand of baseball.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board? We certainly appreciate the county and Mudcats and the Brewers and the effort that they've put into this project, and we only see positive things from here on. This partnership, it's been such a long time since we had any upgrades, but it's still a nice stadium.
It is.
It's a nice stadium. I was touring with some folks the other day, and I guess when we look at the stadium, I remember when it was just a field and gravel and then bleachers, and so I guess I don't get an outside perspective of just what it needs until you start looking at other places. But someone commented on the wallpaper, said, "How old is that wallpaper? They don't even make that anymore." I mean, I never even looked at wallpaper, but that just gives you some idea. Commissioner Lyle?
I maybe suggest that we do another tour of the stadium. I don't know if everyone has been there or not, but actually do a complete walk around so you can see the inside the facilities and what the upgrades would be like.
Yes, we offer that to anyone that wants to. Agree with that. To tour. I think you get a better perspective when you visualize the locker rooms and the spaces that the staff has to deal with. You can really see that the upgrades are much needed. Female facilities, nowhere to shower, nowhere to change clothes, and that's just antiquated, in my opinion. But yes, we welcome anyone that wants to tour, citizens, anyone.
David and Eric would be happy to. They can work with Joe or anyone you designate on doing one tour or multiple tours if you want to do it as a group. But yeah, it's your building. We'd love to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, mental health update, Chief Warkin.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. This evening, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce to you 2 members of Wake Med's leadership team who will be sharing some information tonight on mental health services at Wake Med and in Wake County and how the mental health crisis is impacting the Zebulon community, along with their plans to grow outpatient behavioral health programming. The purpose of this presentation is to make the board aware of the mental health crisis and to provide you with opportunities to partner with Wake Med in addressing the crisis. Rick Schrum is a member of Wake Med's executive leadership team, serving as Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer. In this role, Rick is responsible for identifying, evaluating, and executing market opportunities and strategic initiatives to help Wake Med achieve its mission. He also has operational responsibilities for all behavioral health services. Rick has more than 25 years of experience and leadership in healthcare. Andy Curtis joined Wake Med in 2012 and is the Manager of Government Affairs. In this role, she manages the Community Relations Program, builds and maintains relationships with local elected officials, key governmental staff members, local businesses, and community leaders in Wake County and throughout our region. And I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. First of all, thank you for allowing us to come this evening, and thanks to the staff for changing up our presentation here, last minute. So hopefully you'll enjoy what we have to say. I'm a big baseball fan, so that was kind of cool to, see that kind of conversation going on. The business of baseball is very intriguing and interesting. So again, thanks for letting us come and talk with you. I'm going to try to move through this. So please stop me or whatever along the way if you want to ask questions. Everything we do at Wake Med centers around our strategic plan, which I call it, it's much more than that. It's our culture. It's who we are and what we stand for. And it is a very vibrant thing in all 3.5 million square feet that is Wake Med. Everything we do is centered and points towards patients and families in the service we deliver. Any new service or anything we effort on, we need to be able to point to at least a couple of our aspirational goals before we do it. And in this case, in the behavioral health space, our board chair, who's a wonderful guy, said, Rick, you ought to circle all of them because it really touches all of them. And I just told him, I don't want to do that, Willie. People make fun of me. So I circled the ones that make the most sense. So what is mental health? We had a press conference this week, talk a little bit more about the reason why in a little bit, but somebody asked us, what's a mental health patient look like? And it looks like you and me. And in a post-pandemic world, it looks more and more like you and me. Unfortunately, from a severity of illness perspective, it's much worse than we've seen prior to the pandemic, and we weren't in the best of spots prior to the pandemic. So this wheel kind of represents a lot of different things for you to look at and interpret, all of which are pretty self-explanatory and straightforward. 1 in 5 people are affected, generally speaking, in the population. So it touches everybody, it touches all of us in some way. Behavioral health, substance use is something that reaches everybody. And just a little saying I like to put out there is no health without mental health. If you don't have that, you're going to have a hard time taking care of your physical health as well. So Wake Med has really taken a step to begin to look at the patient and the person as a whole person, not as a disease state or a clinical problem, but we want to look at a whole person and what we can do to bring care to that. You've seen a lot of stories in the news lately. The one in Wayne County recently was really a sad one. We had a shooting based on the delivery of trying to deliver an involuntary commitment to a patient. So you see it. You see a lot of things on the national stage too. I'll just say it that you see come through that don't make sense. And usually when something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for a good reason. There's more behind that story than is getting reported. The strain in the hospital system and specifically on emergency departments is huge. And we'll talk about that a little bit along the way here. But this is just a slide that kind of gives you a graphic about how people get to us. This is all based on actual data at Wake Med, and the percentages are to the left as far as how people arrive. Once they get there, we triage them, and those that we pick something up, they get a full behavioral health assessment, and if they are really ill, they get a complex assessment. So one of the things that we do at our place is I contend that based on the level of professionals that we put at the front door, our emergency rooms, we have 7 of them, people get the best workup in the state of North Carolina. They're some of the most complex patients you'll ever come across. They're poor reporters. They don't really even understand what they need. And so it's really incumbent upon us to make sure that we understand that the best we can so that we can get them to the right care. These are some volume charts that we've been seeing here over the past few months. And the thematic here, the top one is adults that come to the emergency department. The blue bars are patients with behavioral health or substance use illness. And the one at the bottom, unfortunately, is pediatrics. We have a children's hospital and a children's emergency room. So if you look at some of the apexes, you know, on the adult side, you know, 1,100 patients in 1 month. With the children, 240 patients in a month. But the theme is the same, and you'll see this as we go through. It's up and to the right, and not in a good way. So we've seen about a 25% increase after the pandemic has come through. And I mentioned this earlier, severity of illness has dramatically increased. I hadn't looked at these numbers for a while because I don't like to. But at one point during the pandemic, we saw suicidality up 30% and overdose 68% increase. So these aren't little numbers, and they aren't little numbers that people come to see us either. We took a look at some of patients that would originated from Zebulon, and over to the right, those three numbers that are circled are, you know, people that came to REDs seeking care in the behavioral health space. And then suicidal and homicidal ideations and overdoses. So, you know, over 300 people from your community came to Wake Med seeking care. Now, I can tell you this because I've been in the field for a long time. The emergency room is not the place you go to typically when you have a behavioral health or substance condition. It's not the right spot in the road. So these are people that are desperate. Our community's hurting, and that's what these numbers tell me. They don't know what to do. We want to be the beacon in the night every time somebody needs us, but it's really not the place to seek this care. So I wanted to share this with you. This is something that is a little bit of an add-on that the staff helped us with today. You don't have it in your packet, I don't think. But this little thing touched me deeply. It makes it real. And this person, I don't know where they're from, but they legitimately could be from Zebulon. I don't know. But I want to walk you through it real quick. So our chief medical officer for mental health and well-being, a psychiatrist, sent me this note. And I'll just let you read it. This is our why. This is why we're stepping forward. Wake Med's unusual in a good way. When we know the community is hurting, or we know the community needs us, we step forward. This isn't easy work, but it's work that needs to be done for this community. Your impact on your Zebulon Police Department, we appreciate the chief working with us to pull some data. And I don't think this data is any different anywhere. We've been out talking to a lot of municipalities and you know, again, up and to the right. 54% increase since 2010 in the amount of mental health responses they've had to make. I hear this all the time. I serve on the Economic Development Committee for the town of Wendell, and one of my friends is a policeman there on the force. And commitments just take people off the radar, right? And they do at our place too, because we have a police force at Wake Met. And it just takes up and eats up so much of their time that they're not focused on, other things, keeping the community safe. And mental health commitments just in general are, just way, way, way up for obvious reasons. So what have we done thus far, and what do we plan to do? One of the big things we did was we pulled together the Wake Med Behavioral Health Network. This is a very novel solution for a community. It really shouldn't be, frankly, but it is. I say it all the time. It takes a village to take on these challenges. These people are very complex. So we've pulled together 37 different organizations across a pretty big piece of geography to raise the bar and raise the care for patients. Within Wake Med itself, we created all kind of internal services. We pulled together our Triangle Behavioral Health Council, which is, almost 1,000 beds now of different organizations all the way to Greensboro. We have 17 outpatient providers we pulled together with over 2,000 clinicians that really step up for traditional outpatient type of services for behavioral health patients. And we've started the Connected Community, which is our community-based organizations are what I call our real, true, heartfelt nonprofits. So people that are focused on food insecurities, housing insecurities, transportation, employment. If people can't stand on their own 2 feet, they're going to have a hard time recovering, right? They're going to have a hard time showing up on Tuesday at 3 o'clock for their appointment if they don't have anything to eat or they don't have anywhere to live, right? So that real chronic population, we've partnered with these CBOs to try to help them. And it's done unbelievably. I get asked all the time, go all over the country to speak about this. It's really not hard stuff, guys. It's really simple. We put the resources and the expertise at the front door to be able to understand what people truly need, and then we get them to the care. It's not hard stuff, but it's a very novel thing because it's a very, typically, it's a very siloed approach to care. These are some of the results. This is what I consider to be our most important metric. It's avoidable bed days, but it's really what I call days in waiting. So these are patients that are medically stable, but need to be placed from a behavioral health or substance use perspective. And we've been able to decrease that time of waiting 71%. And at the same time, reduce their 30-day readmissions. So they don't come back to the hospital, 26.8% less than they did before. A real testament to quality. So Wake Med's next big contribution, hopefully you saw maybe some of this in the media, we filed a certificate of need with the state of North Carolina to build a behavioral health hospital. Again, we're stepping forward. 150 beds, approximately 150,000 square feet, 30-bed inpatient units for geriatrics, adolescents, dual diagnosis, which are patients that have co-occurring condition of mental health and substance use, young adults and adults. That's what the footprint looks like now, but it might change slightly. Again, we're doing it, through the mission of Wake Med, and that is to deliver outstanding compassionate care to all, with emphasis on all. People that are uninsured or underinsured have a harder time accessing care. It's just that simple. And those are the folks we're stepping up for. We already had 50 beds given to us by the state a few years ago, and we're going to add 100 more to it just because of the increased need. We are looking to locate it somewhere in East Wake County. We think having it proximate to our Raleigh campus, our main campus, is important because that's where a lot of these folks show up, and that's where a lot of the big need is. We estimate it's going to create 250 to 300 new jobs. We filed last Monday, and without opposition, we hope to, get construction started in second quarter of next year, and then it'll take 2 to 3 years. And anybody that's building anything right now understands why that big window is what it is. This is interesting. I think we in this state are very, very lucky and fortunate people. We live in a very vibrant state. From a behavioral health perspective, we're behind. So these 3 organizations on the right there are really major organizations that estimate bed need for different categories. And in behavioral health, the range is generally 40 to 60 beds per 100,000 people. Currently, North Carolina is at 26.9. In 2030, the bed need in our health planning district, which includes Wake County, we will be negative about 259 beds, and at 50 beds per 100,000, over 500. So you've heard enough of me, you get to hear the best. So I'm going to invite Andy to come up and cover the rest.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for having me, and thank you, staff, for helping us get this presentation together. Wake Med steps up, and for the first time since I've worked at Wake Med, a little over 10 years, we actually have been going to municipalities and asking for help. We've never asked for financial help before. Rarely do we ask for help, clinically, but so that should give you some idea of just how dire the crisis is and why we're coming to you tonight, too, as a first step. So this graph on the side just wanted to show you that residents, too, are really concerned. Wake Med and other hospitals throughout Wake County and Wake County Public Health are required to do a community health needs assessment every 3 years. And these are results of the public voting and saying these are the top 3 health issues we believe we need to work on in Wake County. And you can see access to health care, and you can see mental health is 3rd. I will tell you that if you go and look online at the Wake County website, you'll actually see that one of the questions in the survey for the public to respond to was, what's the biggest health issue impacting your community? And that was number 1, was mental health. So it's in the community's collective consciousness as well. We all know that there's a stigma, and hopefully that's diminishing following the pandemic. But for a town or a municipality to come together with Wake Med and take a stand around mental health would really make a statement showing that you all believe that mental health is important and again will help decrease the stigma. And as Rick said, we saw a need. Nobody else was doing anything, so we needed to step up. But really, this mental health crisis isn't necessarily just a medical issue. It's a societal issue. It's a community issue. It sounds really easy to say, well, that's the county, and that's public health, and that's hospitals, or that's Holly Hill. But it's all of us, and we all need to come together to actually move the needle on how we're caring for patients in Wake County. And one of the things that I think almost in an immediate way that Zebulon and Wake Med could partner would be to talk about those social determinants of health. It's not just your physical health, but there's things that can impact an individual's health, like having access to healthy food, having access to transportation, education, and stable housing. So there's things that maybe in Zebulon we can do to partner to help those folks that are in need. So first and foremost, as I said, I've been at Wake Med a little over 10 years, and we've never asked a municipality for financial help. We do what's needed, and we finance what's needed, and our board charges forward. But we're stepping forward in a big way, and we'll have capital costs around the hospital and increasing the number of patients we can serve in the network. So, of course, we, with the utmost respect, would ask you all to consider a financial contribution of some type. We would hope that you can advocate on our behalf and advocate on behalf of your residents. Talk with your state and federal elected officials. Let them know what's going on. Let them know what you're seeing in your community. It's also really helpful for us as we're moving forward through the Certificate of Need process to have a letter of support that we can put with our application that says the town of Zebulon is fully supportive of Wake Med's plans to build a mental health hospital. And there's other times that we also would look to y'all for your support, whether it's, you know, we seek grants often. And so that might be an opportunity for you all to show your support. The other way that I think, you know, as municipalities, you all have a large workforce, and to model behavior and to make sure that your employees have access to the services they need as well. The other thing, and the chief and I talked about this a little bit, consider, and I think you already have officers that are crisis intervention trained, but it's a great program. It helps officers to learn how to de-escalate situations, and it ultimately makes any kind of encounter safer for the person and for your first responders. Share and educate. You know, on the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about, look to us for information that we can help you push out on your website or on Twitter or whatever, you know, where your residents are going for information. And I know Sheila is here, and Sheila's been a great partner already with us, and we're working towards doing some type of youth mental health initiative, and so she's already doing a lot in this space too. And again, let us be your partner in care. So we come to us if you have ideas. Let us know what's going on, what you're seeing. There might be something that we haven't seen yet, and it might be trending, and we need to get ahead of it. We have amazing people at Wake Med. Rick just said we have psychiatrists, psychologists, you know, administrative staff that are passionate about this area of care. And if you were looking for a Rotary Club speaker or somebody at your church, let us talk about mental health. Let us talk about the signs and symptoms you need to look for in your loved ones. And let us be that person, that expert that you turn to. And again, you know, let us provide accurate content. I was looking at some posts after our story, and it still is a little disheartening, the misinformation about mental health. And you know, let us provide that accurate information. Let us be the expert there. So anytime you need us, please don't hesitate to reach out. I try to make myself available, and most elected officials, if I haven't met you in person already, have said, oh yeah, I see your emails. So, you know, thank you for the updates and things like that. So, but please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you so much for hearing us tonight, and we'd love to continue the conversation, but we felt like we needed to kind of start with a level set and kind of share some information about where we are and where the community is. So happy to take questions.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Does any board have any questions or comments? Commissioner Laux?
I don't.
I do.
Commissioner Harrison?
Thank you. I was just wondering, of the 307 people you served in Zebulon, do you have an estimate or a rough estimate of how many of those were youth, percentage-wise, maybe?
Yeah, I don't. We didn't cut the data that way.
Okay.
You know, but if you just look at the gross numbers, you know, it's 20% roughly that are the behavioral health patients that show up are youth.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Baxter, Clark.
Okay, I'm fine. I don't have anything.
Commissioner Miles.
This is for the chief. I just wanted to know a little bit about your crisis intervention training for the officers. It'd be greatly appreciated.
So the state actually has a crisis intervention training program, and we have worked that into our career development ladder. My goal would be for every patrol level officer to have crisis intervention training. That it's a 40-hour class, and so it's going to take us a little bit of time to get all of our staff through that. But we've worked it into the second step in the in the career development program. So in order for them to become a senior police officer, they will have to have that training.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Baxter.
First, I'd like to say that I have worked with Andy Curtis before, and we've had several amazing conversations, both about our community, Zebulon itself, about Wake County, and more specifically about youth mental health and the crisis that's affecting them right now. So, along with the work that I did at the beginning of the pandemic, feeding families and then actually getting money from Wake County to help continue as a food hub in Zebulon, I know absolutely 100% that this situation is real, and I feel like if there were better ways for our citizens to present at Wake Med, we would have much higher numbers. We are a municipality where, you know, our median income is the lowest in Wake County. So for a lot of folks, they don't even have the opportunity to get the help that they need at the emergency department. So I think that this is important. I'm so excited that we're entering into this conversation on more than just a minor level, but a much larger level. I think it's exciting that we'll be able to take care of more of our county residents and certainly more of our community residents through this exciting initiative that Wake Med has coming down the pipeline. But what I need to know is building this hospital and providing more beds, clearly with a county resident rate of 1.1 million, and the beds are only going to cover 500,000 of those residents if you consider the percentages. How are we in this community? I mean, clearly you've already you've offered help in other ways, but how are we going to be able to take advantage of the fact that this facility is being built, considering that there are some constraints by the citizen, that the citizens of our municipality have that perhaps citizens of other municipalities don't have?
Yeah, it's a great question, big one, but a great question. We were really excited to open our MyCare 365 clinic here, and they are going to get enrolled in our behavioral health initiative. So to me, and again, I'm just an old hack, but it's about getting upstream. What you don't want is you don't want those people coming to the emergency department, right? You don't want them having to be so sick that they've got to be hospitalized. So it's about early identification and intervention. And I think the game is going to be won, or closer to won, through the big change that's happening in healthcare, which we're in a historic time right now. People don't really realize it in most cases. But we're moving from what I call what's fee-for-service. So the way the healthcare works is somebody comes to you, you do something, and the insurance pays you for it, right? Whatever that is. And we're moving into more of a population health model so that insurers, our employers are going to pay for health, not health care. And that stage puts behavioral health looking through a totally different lens because of those things I mentioned along the way here tonight. If you don't have mental health, you're not going to have physical health. You're not going to have health, period. So for me, it's about utilizing technology. It's about professionals working to top a license. And it's about early identification and intervention. That's really the game plan. It's not building beds. Beds don't fix it. For us, beds was the last piece. You know, I told our board, I don't know that we have to build beds. I think we can partner our way to this and really make an impact. And we did. We got 37 organizations involved in something that's, you know, we're one voice, we're one mind, right? But it's just not enough when you're in a community that has 70 new people in it every day, being Wake County, right? So it's just not enough. And we needed that last piece. But I think the answers are going to be in the conversation. How many conversations have you had about behavioral health, you know, at a city council meeting in Zebulon, right? You're not unusual. This is something that most people don't want to talk about, but the conversation has started. It's a different time. It's a different place. And I'm very optimistic that when I turn this over to, you know, our bright and young people at Wake Med, they're going to keep moving this ball forward. But it really is about figuring out what people need a lot earlier so that you don't need all those beds. Now, there's about 500 beds in Wake County right now, but only 28 of them are operated by a nonprofit. So therein lies the access problems, right? So that's one of the reasons we're stepping forward. But beds don't solve the whole problem. It's you, it's us, it's the village, man. That's what will help us get there. Great questions.
Any other questions, comments? Well, thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Andy. Look forward to definitely collaborating and meeting with you.
Probably just wind up back on the floor, but I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We recognize this is it's an issue that's very important, and we just want to be a part of making improvements in any way we can from a municipal standpoint. Thank you.
It's exciting to have this conversation started. Thank you.
We're going to have a 5-minute recess for the next presentation.
Thank you, sir. I thought you was a 10 on it.
Yeah, I was like, wait, 10.
Getting off the 10.
Okay. I'm just going to the restaurant. Oh, I know, right? Got a lot of hits back here.
That the sound is awful and that people are having they're struggling to hear the session. I'm not sure who we need to talk to, like.
I'll double check with Barry.
I mean, it's sad.
Now, where was,
I don't know who that is.
PNC. Yeah.
well, that's where Johnny parks cars there. That's where Johnny
Oh, does he?
lives on his park.
Sunday is 1 o'clock. Saturdays are 5.
Yeah, one of my friends told me, she's like, okay. But yeah, my husband's got COVID. I don't want to go. And I was like, yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
Ready to convene?
We're all eating.
Special events, public-private partner policy. Sheila Long, thank you.
Sorry, Sheila, we're all hungry.
I'm glad we found snacks. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Thank you for having me this evening. This has kind of been like a process in the works over the last, I would say, half of a year. We've had some great experiences working with some events that you've authorized that have been planned and implemented by members of the public or the private sector. And we've been working towards this for several years, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. So just from a general policy review, to have a discussion about special events and to implement a special events policy or a standard really fits in all three areas of your strategic plan. Members of our community, they want to be together, they want to have opportunities to engage with one another. We also recognize that having a vibrant downtown includes opportunities to have events like we've had a couple of those from the private sector, but also this past Friday we had Rock the Block, which was the first in a series that we've offered in our downtown. But it's also an opportunity for us to grow smart, because if you look at our strategic plan, it specifically outlines a need to work with community partners. And so this is an opportunity, another opportunity for us to do that and to expand beyond the framework that we've started with. It's also recognized in your Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So there's two specific areas that were in the master plan, and that was to collaborate with downtown partners to offer events, as well as to identify opportunities to support and encourage private-led public events. And you've seen this slide several times from me in the past. We are a downtown associate community, and Teresa Piner has been leading up that charge, and y'all have been able to participate in some meetings and some discussions and some presentations related to what does participation in that program and ultimately the Main Street program looks like. And there's 4 pillars of that: organization, design, promotion, and economic restructuring. Events typically fall into that promotions area of how you are telling the story of your downtown, how are you getting people to your downtown, and how you are continuing to encourage repeat visits to your downtown and exposing people that may not have ordinarily come to your downtown area. We started a discussion in 2020 on events where we talked about the difference of town-hosted public events versus private public events. The town does like flagship events. We have 2. We have our Spring Fest, which was formerly May Days. We've also had, we have the downtown tree lighting, Candy Cane Lane flagship event. And those are very much supported through partnerships. And that doesn't, we'll talk here in a second about some other events that we do. But there's also a lot of opportunity for private public events, which you have seen with the St. Patrick's Day event, as well as Juneteenth. The Zebulon Chamber's annual Christmas parade is another example. So here, just to further talk about some flagship events, we've actually added another event series, and that'll be Rock the Block to your events here. But there are other events that the town offers, such as the artisan market, outdoor movie nights, but then there's some much smaller community-based events that we also do. So the town can't do all of this and all the other events that could be great pieces, 5Ks, remembrance walks. There's lots of holidays that people seek to celebrate as well. So the town can't effectively do that all, but also when the community is invested, you get different perspectives and you'll get a much better event. So private planned events that you've done, as we've talked about, St. Patrick's Day, Juneteenth, and Christmas parade. And the process that we've been using over the last year or so is that there's an application that we ask these private entities to complete, and the staff will review that application and that request. We'll meet with the event planners and just kind of go through the different details to figure out what it will take from town resources, what requirements do we need to have if this is going to be on town-owned property to ensure that the public is safe and that our resources are maintained in an appropriate manner. And so we use that information to develop a contract, and then we've brought that to the board for a decision. Private planned town hall events, somewhat of a similar process. Some of these events have included Walk for Life, Flags for Heroes, Angel Print Remembrance Walk. And that's a similar process in that there's an application period, there's a staff review, but there's also a contract that's already been vetted by the town with standards and adopted by the board. And so there isn't that contractual period that you have to develop and navigate. And then any private events that are occurring on the town hall grounds is a board decision. Just to revisit how the event review work group goes, it's initiated by an event organizer. And each department, so we do have a representative from fire, police, planning, the Parks and Rec department, Public Works. So we all participate in a review process. We come together, we'll meet, but we're looking at assisting to navigate logistics. We are helping to understand different code requirements. I'll give the example of a tent. There are certain statewide codes. If your tent's a certain square footage, you have to have exit sign or fire exit signs, you have to have fire extinguishers. And so having the fire department included on these discussions helps to trigger. Those are questions they know to ask so that we can help steer the event planner in the right direction so they know what the expectations are so that our community members are safe when they're attending these events. We also share our town experiences. So it could be understanding what times events are typically successful, layouts of events that have worked well, where porta-johns are recommended to be placed, or how power has worked with food trucks logistically. So there's just different things that we have. The police department might have experience, or fire, or public works, from the various things that they've all been a part of, and we can share that. We have some general guidelines that we seek that are consistent with any time someone uses a town facility, but then every event is different, and so we've had to kind of navigate. If you're doing a parade, these expectations, you can't throw candy as you're riding from a vehicle. That's just one example. If you're going to have tents, we don't want you to drive stakes into the asphalt. So there's some discussions that we have there. So what you have before you is a draft. This isn't a final draft. It is a working draft. But I wanted to put something in your hands that you can work from, that you can look at, we can have a conversation about, and then we can continue to discuss this. So I don't want you to view this as a final draft and we're going to immediately vote on this. So we definitely want to get your input. I'm going to ask you a series of questions that this, as I said, this is just to give us something to start from, but there are a series of questions that I would like to propose to the board to help us tweak this policy and cater it to the desires of the board. This policy is going to be the guide for staff event planners and the board. It will also outline clear expectations so that there's no surprises and there's consistency. It's a managing tool. As we have questions about how many of these do we want to do? How many times can we shut down a street? How often are we going to waive fees? There's mechanisms that we're proposing to be included in this policy to help manage that. And we've also included deadlines and fees, and that is in and of itself a managing tool. But we wanted to point that out specifically because it does take a lot of town resources to stand up an event. And it takes a lot of resources for an event planner to stand it up. And so we just want to make sure that everybody has the appropriate amount of time so that they can be successful. The event planners can get information from the town in a timely manner that they need in order to have a successful event in the long run. So the first set of questions I'm going to ask, it's really pages 4 and 5, but I don't know that you necessarily really need to look at the pages, but it just gives you an idea when you are looking at it at home. But we've had several events where they've come before you and they've asked for fees to be waived. We've heard that there's concern that the board kind of wanted to know what some standards are in the future, so that when you're making these considerations, there's consistency and you don't find yourself in the position of telling one yes and one no, but you don't have a clear, structured reason as to why you've chosen one versus the other. So I wanted to pose this question to the board. What conditions would the board like to apply for consideration of fee waivers?
Commissioner Baxter?
I'd like to use some of the conditions that were actually in our board packet from our August board meeting, like a clear and large presence in the community, has a clear benefit in the community.
So the standards that are outlined in the facility use for this, for the municipal complex?
Yeah. I'd like also maybe some discussion by the board as to if we do it once for one, are we going to do it every year for them? Or do we do it once and then from that point forward, you know, does it have to come back before us for consideration?
And I would think so. And then you could decide.
Excuse me. I got to recognize.
Excuse me.
Commissioner Clark?
I think that's a good idea, but then do we want to always waiver for that one? Yeah,
Well,
we may look at it again and
that's
think
exactly
we don't
right.
want
Exactly. I'm sorry, I wasn't
to.
recognized.
Just answering my question.
Okay.
Commissioner Harrison?
Okay. So I would think for the conditions, I would like to see where we have kind of in the same lines of what you all are saying, like a limited amount of times a certain organization could ask for their fees to be waived. For instance, if we waive it, you know, for them in May and they come back and they want to host another event and they're asking for the fees, like we have a strict, like if we decide to waive fees, you can only get them waived once a year or whatever the board agrees on, because I think that will give the organization themselves some type of responsibility to say what event am I putting on that is more important and more essential for the community, where I want the fees waived for this one instead of this event. So maybe putting some limitations on how many times we're waiving fees for a certain organization.
Commissioner Laus?
Yeah, if you remember when we did St. Patrick's Day party, we specifically said that was being seed funded. In other words, we'll help you jumpstart at year one, but it needs to stand on its own feet in year two.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Commissioner Miles?
No, I just piggyback off what Commissioner Lau said. That's where we were at, kind of like that seed money and a lot of opportunities. That's even down to the Juneteenth and those things like that. We're kind of trying to get that program started, so just giving funds now, but later on, it will cost.
Commissioner Harrison?
However, when we look at it that way, and then we look at the stipulations of how have they been helping in the community, what are they doing in the community, that may get kind of tricky, because if we're saying we'll waive the fees in order to help you as planting a seed, then we may not be able to look and say, oh, well, they've been helping in the community, because, so that might, I don't know what you all think, but that could get tricky.
Commissioner Baxter?
I agree. I think it's going to be tricky, but I also think it's something that we need to navigate.
Right.
Just because, you know, I know it's so difficult. I kind of feel like we should just be able to talk a little bit and get, you know, like do work that way, but I don't know. Because are we always going to waive fees for, let's say, like the Christmas parade? Maybe it has a huge benefit for the town and the town really wants the parade, but maybe not. And then when it comes to, like you were talking about, Commissioner Harrison, seed money, I don't think that our obligation is to help a 501c3 get started, but I think that if they hit certain criteria, then yeah, we, you know, like I don't have a problem waiving the fee to bring, you know, like to have an event happen. You know, like I love that we're doing this and we're allowing people to have events in our town. That's so cool.
So basic sounds like case-by-case basis. That's what that we were talking about.
Do we need a conch shell?
I think that it would have to be. I mean, there's no way that we could possibly, I don't think that there is a way that we can just put into black and white the exact way without saying that it would have to be a case-by-case basis, because, yeah.
I mean, because for me, like the last thing that we approved, it was basically looking, I think it was aimed where the young man came before us with the nonprofit. I gave it an example. I looked at all the things that he's doing in the community. Right. So that made it weighed on my decision making, how we would assist him, whether given that. So definitely, it's going to be a case-by-case basis, it seems as if, and to a certain degree. Please.
But I think that we do need to set down some standards. And maybe we're a little bit loosey-goosey for the first year or the first 18 months. But then, you know, like we need folks to have a, you know, a rubric, you know, an expectation. If you check these boxes, then you can come before us and there's a good likelihood your fee is going to be waived. If you don't check these boxes, then maybe there needs to be some conversation about give and take before you can come before and your fee is just waived.
Yeah, I think especially in the initial startup, we want to help folks get started. But after then, you know, we want public-private partnerships to continue. But eventually, we want these folks to be able to stand on their own. Yeah. I mean, hopefully down the road. Mm-hmm. Commissioner Baxter?
At least so that it's not costing the town money. With a facility fee, that's something that we're hoping to get, you know, so that we can put a little bit aside for maybe events in the future. But when it comes to paying employees, the police and like staff from Parks and Rec and Public Works, you know, absolutely, we need to make sure that we're recouping money for those events. That's part of like what makes an event successful, is that they're able to at least make it net zero for the town.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully we'll get there one day. Mm-hmm. Right. Commissioner Harrison?
I like the idea of a rubric. I think that's just the educator in me. I think that's just a good idea to have that, you know, maybe set that as a standard, because maybe they won't check all the boxes, but maybe they check a lot of them. And so maybe if you guys can create something like that for us to look over, I think that would be an effective tool to use moving forward.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? You had another question you wanted to ask the board?
I have several.
Oh,
Yes.
go right ahead.
And this, I'm going to go ahead and move the slide forward and then come back because they may be tied together for you. So I'm going to read both questions and then give the floor back to you. So would the board like to limit the number of private events it will support with fee waivers? Then the next question is, would the board prefer to see an annual submission cycle, a biannual submission cycle, quarterly cycle, or continue case by case? Because that's what we've currently done. I've seen where a lot of communities have successfully done an annual submission cycle so that they do it towards the end of the year and you can budget for it. But it allows you to make a wise decision with a rubric across the board.
Commissioner Baxter?
So where are we? You've seen towns be able to do the annual thing. Where are we right now? Are we still in the infancy stages where we need to kind of handle this on a case by case? Do we shoot for quarterly and then like have our ultimate goal to be doing annuals? Where are we?
I think, there was a time, Joe, was it like 6 weeks ago, where I had 4 people talking to me about possibility of events of some form or fashion. And so I think that we are going to be in a position sooner rather than later, understanding staff resources and what we can feasibly handle, and that we're going to need. We already do substantial events planning just on the town's end, that then starting to plug that into our police department schedule when they are also supporting like 5-county stadium. There's just a lot of moving pieces for such a small town that, we have some pretty substantial events, potential for events that have just started already. So I think that you are in a position where you could do a biannual process and you would be okay. And I say that because really for any large scale event, you're going to need a significant amount of time to plan. And I think if you wanted to put a process in play that says like for the next year, we're going to do quarterly, and then or in the upcoming in fiscal year 2024, you transition to a biannual process. But I think what we have seen, and it was a great learning experience for us, but what we have seen is that the events that we have done on the case-by-case basis, there was a lot more planning that needed to be done for it really to be done in the best manner possible. And so having that structure up front, I think, would be helpful to everybody, not just the town, but for the event planners as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of in favor of the quarterly basis to start off with, and then biannually, because if you're doing an event, there are sweet dates you want, and you always look at what the area towns are doing to see, I don't want to do something the same Friday night Wendell's doing Meet on Main. There's too much competition. And what happens if 2 groups step forward and say, I want to do a St. Patty's Day party? We could actually have an incident or a situation where we have more than one group that wants to do something on that day. So I think quarterly is wise. It helps with planning.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Harrison?
And I think quarterly and moving to annually is good because it will give those new organizations an opportunity to get more grounded, instead of having an organization that just, was founded and we're unable to find a lot of information about them because they're new. So giving them to say that we're going to do this, we'll take your applications quarterly, we'll give them an opportunity to get more into the community, to do more things so that when they present to us, they have more to show as into why we should waive fees or to even accept their application. So, yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
I think we do need to do the biannual or Because they'll know they're going to do it every year, and they'll get into that routine, and it will help, push it.
Mr. Miles?
With that said, I know it's still in the draft process, getting that information to the organization, saying, okay, you have to get this in by X amount of dates, things of that nature. I know you're going to implement that, I'm sure, but is there kind of like you have a guideline or kind of like a general thought right now in that process of what you're thinking? Because I look at it as our growth, there's going to be more organizations coming in. As we're growing 7 or 8 people per day, we know the numbers, all of us know the statistics. New organizations are going to pop up. And then if they miss that, and want to do something in that quarter, are they kind of left out there in left field, or what?
Yeah, I think it's very common with just general grant. At the end of the day, it's kind of like a grant process.
Okay.
And so nonprofits and organizations deal with deadlines and sessions. We deal with that. If we were to go to Walmart and ask for a sponsorship of $1,000 to buy water, they only do that every quarter. And I think that is something that a lot of these organizations are used to, is a submission cycle. And it's on us as we develop this process, we will implement some marketing tools. There'll be information available on the website. As the deadline's approaching for that quarterly submission process, as deadlines approach, we would put that out through social media or other means of marketing. But I think that's just another piece of the implementation of this, is developing like that marketing tool so that you are getting it out to the different nonprofits in the community. The chamber has the information so that as they talk with some of their nonprofit groups or even some of the for-profit businesses that have great ideas that they want to do things, that they have that information that they can share. Same with the planning department and Teresa Piner with DAC. So I just think there's a lot of ways that we can educate our community in order to move towards that quarterly process and then later on the biannual or the annual.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want anybody to feel left out. That's my concept. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Baxter?
I think we should start quarterly with the expectation that as we kind of get people coming on board and understanding what our process is, that we can move to biannually, and then maybe sometime we'll be ready to do annually. But I think right now people have been seeing that we are doing these events, that they have been met with success, and I want to give folks the opportunity, at least for a short period of time, to be able to revisit where they're at quarterly and are they ready to submit for a particular quarter. One of the things that I think that we all kind of learned from the first few of these events is that it does take significant planning. You can't say 6 weeks out and I'm going to have an awesome event. You can have an event that's fun, right, but we want, and I know that everybody wants to be able to present the best event that we can, and that takes a significant amount of planning. Mm-hmm. So in the short term, I feel like we should be doing quarterly, but in the not too distant future, I'd like us to move to biannually.
Absolutely. And with that said, do you want, if you're going to that quarterly, back to this other question, do you want to limit the number of private events you'll support each quarter, or just on an annual basis? Do you just want to kind of leave it a little vague at first? Just kind of back to that, I guess, that rubric area of when you're making these decisions. At some point you have to say no to somebody.
I would think the size and the scope of the event would play a significant role in that. If your event is asking for 500 people or 1,000 people estimate, then that should be in consideration as far as the planning is concerned, because it's going to take more manpower to operate an event of that nature, where if someone just says, give me a space in the alley or something, which wouldn't take that much manpower and that much planning. So the scope of the size of the project. Any other comments? Commissioner Max?
I think that if we have tiers, that might be helpful. So we're only going to have maybe 4 events a year that are of this size and above, and maybe 6 events that are this size and above. And then maybe if they're smaller events, we could even think about doing 1 a month, depending on what, quite honestly, Parks and Rec and planning and the police department and the fire department are able to, commit to, because, each one of these events is a major commitment from every department that we have.
Commissioner Harrison?
I agree with that, because I also think that this will be a great opportunity to also partner with the departmental, like our town departments. So as people are, submitting applications for these things, there may be something that Parks and Rec are doing or that the police department is doing that you can look at that application and say, oh, well, we're already doing this, so let's just combine it instead of submitting an entirely new application.
Yeah.
So.
And that's actually already happening.
Okay, great.
So so I think you're right. And I will share the tiered system. If you look on page 2, we've actually already outlined what a tiered system could look like.
And I thought I was being clever. I should have known. You guys are way more clever. Perfect.
Do you want me to move to the next question?
Unless there are any more questions,
Sorry,
comments?
lots of decisions tonight.
Just one quick question.
Commissioner
So we are limiting the number of events, say 500 and over, 200 over per year? Or did I misunderstand that? Okay, you can only have 4 events with 500 people over, or did I misunderstand that?
So the question was, did you want to limit the number of private events that you would support a fee waiver for?
Okay, fee waiver for.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, comments on that question? Next question.
Wanted to also, a lot of this discussion and a lot of these questions has surrounded street closure events. So I also wanted to tie in non-street closure event spaces. You have a standalone policy for the municipal complex, but the reality is it's not like a picnic shelter rental. It's not a field rental or a rental at the community center. Typically, events that are held here are more of your large-scale events. Do you want to bring that process into your special event policy for the municipal complex, but also look specifically at our alleys? And if we're looking at the alleyways, because we're currently seeing a lot of activity starting in the activated alleys, and so just how does the board want to see that addressed, or do you want that addressed in the special event policy, or do you want it addressed some other way?
Commissioner Baxter?
I would love to see everything streamlined in one policy. I think that's a fantastic idea, and folks are only going to have to look in one area to find the information that they need, and we'll be able to have it all centralized.
Commissioner Baxter? Miles?
With that said, activating the alleyways in this process, one alleyway comes to mind that's right by Fall Line. That would be a concern. How would somebody said, I want to have an event right there? How would we address that, or is that something we even thought about, kind of sort?
I think we would. It's town property, and so we would address it just like we do a picnic shelter rental.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes, I think we should put it all in one.
Yeah.
I think that we just need to have everything in one place. It just streamlines the process, and people don't have to search for it. I mean, not that they have to now, but yeah. So.
Any other questions, comments? Next question? Next question?
And this one may be a little in the weeds, but I just kind of wanted to get some feedback. A lot of this will also depend on like a major thoroughfare. It takes a lot of department resources from Public Works and the police department. It impacts fire. NCDOT has to be involved in those types of discussions. But there are some general guidelines that we started with in the draft, but just kind of want to get a feel from the board. What do y'all think is a reasonable time frame or number of times that you would close things like major thoroughfares, and that would be like a section of a rental, you can't do the whole thing, or a downtown side street like Horton or Sycamore or Vance Street, the public parking lot or the alleys?
Commissioner Harrison?
I don't think that there is a logical way to answer that question without seeing, the applications in front of us. Because, you want to be fair and you want to make sure that you're not closing the same streets repeatedly. However, I guess it would depend on the function that is taking place. You don't want to close the same streets, that we can't close certain streets. So I honestly don't know that we can, I can't answer that. I feel like that would be a case-by-case scenario.
Commissioner Baxter?
I understand what Commissioner Harrison has said, and it has merit. But I also think that maybe we could do the same kind of tiered system and maybe accomplish that, because certainly it's going to take a lot less to have a little pop-up concert in one of the activated alleys than it is to like close a portion of a rental. And so, closing a major thoroughfare, I think that happens infrequently. Closing, like doing something in an alleyway, I think could happen, depending on how streamlined things become. We could even see it weekly, depending on the event, and then, the permits should reflect that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Miles?
No, fine.
Commissioner Hawks?
Yeah, you've got so many factors based upon the street, the day of the week, the number of hours, the current businesses on that street. Is it helping that business or hurting that business? There's just so many factors to consider. It's hard to come up with a flat rule. And then another thing, if I can drop a seed in everybody's mind, is remember that the downtown area, while it is a state road, we could take over or petition taking over responsibility for that road. For example, say Gannon to Barbie Street, and then we can do what we want and don't have to deal with DOT, and closures could be much more frequently. Just that's a seed to be thinking about.
I'm sure DOT would love for us to take over all the streets if that was a financial possibility.
Does anybody know that process? 'Cause that's the same thing I was thinking about as well. I think we had touched on it a little bit in earlier meetings, but is there somebody that knows that process?
It would be a great retreat topic to talk about
Okay.
the expense, the
I agree with
timing,
that.
and then if we're going to do it, we got to use it.
I agree. I like the,
Commissioner Baxter?
I love the idea of making it a retreat topic. That's it.
Manager Moore, did you have anything on streets being?
I did, but if you're going to make it a retreat topic, we can go into detail at that time.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments? Next question.
All right. I'm bringing this question before the board. There was some discussion about social districts in the past. The board has adopted some changes to your ordinance to allow on-street consumption immediately adjacent to an establishment. Some of the feedback that we've gotten from Rock the Block and some that we had gotten throughout the process of those discussions were, do you allow for a social district only for events? So it's not like all the time thing or a daily thing, but it's established only for events. The process, it's not something that you can establish just through like a resolution, where currently the resolution that you made, I'm gonna give you the example of Rock the Block. The resolution you made allowed for sales and consumption. However, the establishments that were like Mythic Brewing, they were right there in the area that they were selling. Their permit will not allow them to sell beverages that will go beyond that shadow of their building, basically, and out into the festival. So they had to set up a second location with an events permit. And then there may have been other businesses that could have benefited from being able to have that maneuvering through a social district. Some of the other retail businesses like East Wake Collective or Pinafore or Creative Cup. And that's a process. It's a time, it takes a little bit of time. The town would have to work with the ABC. So we're just gonna pose this question is, do you want us to draft what that would look like for future consideration?
Commissioner Harrison?
No, I don't, because I think that it gets sticky for just the social district and the wording, and for special events. I think that if we start allowing it too much and calling it that during these events, it might get carried out when it's not a special event. So that's just me.
Commissioner Laus?
Yeah, this would probably only take about 15 minutes, but I think if you took a map of the downtown area and marked all the bars and then just took a highlighter and said, if we were going to have a social district for like a special event, you'd have to include this street, this street, this street, and show us how big it would be. And then we can talk about enforcement and what, the potential problems we'd encounter. Because I've done that myself, and it's a pretty good size area because of where the bars are all located.
Commissioner Laus?
I agree with Commissioner Harrison. I agree with Commissioner Harrison. I kind of like it was Rock the Block. I like that. It seemed where people enjoyed themselves. You knew where they were at. Can't get past this sign. It was easy for law enforcement to enforce and regulate. I like that concept, kind of confining that area.
Commissioner Baxter?
Yes. But if the scope of the event was that whole area, that could hit every single one of, those alcohol establishments, would that make a difference? I don't know the answer to that, but, I definitely think that opening up a social district outside the confines of where the perimeter of the event is a terrible idea, just because of the additional manpower that we would need to staff and control the event.
Commissioner Harrison?
So I think we're back to it just depends on the event. It depends on the request, the event, what is taking place. So I definitely agree with what was said.
Mr. Clark?
I'm listening.
Commissioner Baxter?
If you need direction, I'm comfortable saying not right now.
Okay.
Until we hash some other things out.
No problem.
Same.
Commissioner Miles?
I'm fine, thank you. I agree with you.
So we're saying a retreat topic for further discussion?
Correct.
Next question.
I don't have any more questions for you, although I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. But I was going to just share, I put up here like a window that, not that we're limited to this window, but just to encourage questioning that you may have once you've had a chance to read through this draft, and maybe you have some thoughts or ideas, that 2 weeks from August 19th through the 31st would be a great time for us to have some discussion. If you want to reach out to me with questions or thoughts and ideas, that I can then have an opportunity to pull that together, maybe make some revisions, bring forward another draft. Your next board meeting is the 12th. I don't think that we're going to be in a position to bring you something to adopt by any means at that point. But your next work session would be the 15th, where I could bring forward some new information to you in regards to this policy based on any feedback that I get from you in that window, the 19th through the 31st, as well as that you've shared with us tonight. Yes?
Is it possible that you could email a copy of this to us, to the board, your draft?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board compensation?
Yes,
Manager Moore?
yes, sir, thank you. At the board's budget work session on June 13th, they made a motion to table this discussion on board salaries and compensation until tonight, their August work session. So staff is available to initiate further research on this topic per the board direction. Before we get into that, just illustrate some things that we have handed out to you. So we've got a spreadsheet that you have available. These are just a benchmark of 12 other municipalities. And I was going to walk through and highlight the ones that are closest to you in population. What that spreadsheet has on it, and what I will go over now is compensation of area towns by looking at population and the salary and the benefits. So if you take a look and you focus at the salary compensation, and the spreadsheet you have in front of you, I don't think is organized this way, but on the screen we have pooled together those that are closest in population. So town of Wendell, the fastest growing town in the state, now has an estimated population of close to 12,000. The mayor receives an annual compensation of close to 12,000. The mayor pro tem as well as board members receive about $8,900 per year. Town of Rollsville, the former fastest growing town in the state, estimated population a little over 10,000. The mayor's compensation is 12,800 roughly. They have a difference, and I don't know what the basis of the difference is, but they have a difference between the annual compensation for the mayor pro tem and the board members, with the mayor pro tem receiving a little over $9,000 a year and the board members receiving close to $6,000 a year. City of Oxford, I don't know their growth rate. I know that they are doing some significant growth compared to their historic trends. They're around $8,800. The mayor's compensation there is around $9,500 a year. Mayor pro tem is a little over $7,200, and the board members' compensation is close to $6,500. And then town of Zebulon at 8,760 people. Mayor's compensation is 12,663. Both the mayor pro tem and the board members' compensation is 5,371. Before I get into the benefits, and we also have a specific breakdown on health benefits, I will pause to see if there's any questions or comments from the board. Mayor, okay to proceed?
Yes.
Okay. On the benefits compensation, again, breaking down those municipalities closest to you in population as far as paid health, for town of Wendell, paid health insurance, they don't provide, nor do they provide a cell phone stipend. Town issued computer or iPad, they do issue iPads. Vehicle is not provided. An office for the mayor or commissioner, mayor only, and they have a budget of a little over $2,400 a year to award for travel and training. Town of Rollsville, similar, and the health insurance and cell phone stipend is not provided. They do issue a town computer. A vehicle, again, is not provided. Office, once again, is restricted to the mayor. Travel and training is restricted just to mileage reimbursement. City of Oxford, again, similar story in health insurance and cell phone stipend not being provided, nor is a computer or iPad. Again, no vehicles provided. And again, the office is reserved just for the mayor. Travel and training, it sounds like they've got some restrictions where some reimbursement is eligible for required travel. And then Town of Zebulon, I highlighted and read a few things just to illustrate that I want to provide some more detail or to let you know that some things are in progress or some things that you asked when you passed the FY23 budget, where they are or where they have been accomplished. So paid health insurance, unlike the 3 previous, health insurance is offered to commissioners, and I'm going to break that down again in a minute. As far as cell phone stipend, mayor is issued a cell phone. Per the adoption of your budget, FY23 budget, you budgeted $15,000. That's in progress. We've got a project in front of that where we're getting ready to transfer our servers before we do the mass order of all of the computers for not only you all, but the upgrades for staff as well. Vehicle is not provided. You all, per your FY23 budget, adopted the creation of a office space for commissioners. You share that space. It's in the hallway to the right that's been completed, and it's up and available for you, in addition to the office that has already been and had been established when the town moved into this building for the mayor. As far as travel and training, you all have a budget. The mayor has a budget of $3,833, and the reason those are odd numbers is there's a base number, and we apply an inflation rate to that. So that's the reason that those numbers are odd. The commissioners, each commissioner has a budget of $2,833. Again, I'll pause before I get into the breakdown of the health insurance to see if there's any questions or comments.
Questions, comments? Proceed.
Okay, thank you. As far as the health insurance, so here are the premiums that are paid for health, dental, and vision. These are the premiums that the town of Zebulon pays to provide health insurance. You do have an opt-out option. I want to say that if you do opt out of it, is it 70 or 75%? 75% you get, if you opt out of the insurance, then you can get 75% of this value to come back to you. So that could be figured into either a benefits compensation, or if you opt out, it could be considered possibly a salary compensation. So let me just go back, and we will take this time to take any questions or comments. I don't know that you're going to be in a position to act on this tonight. I suspect, depending upon the feedback that you give us at staff, we may have to come back to you with a budget amendment. So this is really, we're looking for direction, but also answer any questions or comments that you have.
The 75%, how is that calculated?
Why is 75%? Why was it picked?
Yeah.
It's probably something we've done by habit, but let me just check. There you go. We do it, especially in this area, we've done a lot of things by habit, but there's no like rhyme or reason or formula or anything like that.
Do we know the percentage of the towns that do offer health benefits? What's their formula?
Of the ones that offer health insurance,
yes.
What is the percentage that they offer if you opt out?
Yes.
I doubt we have that. We could look that up, though.
Any other questions? comments? Proceed.
That concludes our presentation. We're really looking for direction from the board, if they have direction, or we're available to answer any questions or address any comments.
I think for me, right, oh, sorry about that.
Commissioner Miles?
For me, I just kind of sat down, when I saw the numbers, I called the finance director, Bobby Fitz today, and I was breaking it down. And I did it based off like a 80-hour per month, if we basically did 20 hours a week, thereabouts. And let me see, I'll just read what I have. When you break this down into an hourly rate, based upon us dedicating 80 hours per month, 12 months a year to work, we earn $5.60 per hour, which is 45 cents more than the hourly minimum, $5.15 minimum wage during 1997 through 2007, and only 25% less than $5.85 what was minimum wage for in 2007. So that's kind of where we're at now if you base it off an 80-hour month, kind of like that.
Commissioner Baxter?
Did that include the health insurance compensation?
That's the 537. That's the entire total, correct, if you do it like that. I didn't add that in strategically, but it's just based off that number that was given by the finance director, which was $5,371.83. And I just kind of divided it up based off an 80-hour per month, if you did 20 hours a week, thereabouts. And basically, like I said, it's $5.15 minimum wage was what minimum wage was for 1997. And that's kind of where we at with $5.60 per hour. And I know the volume of work with the growth that we have now going on, I know what we're definitely probably putting in that 80 hours for sure. If you look at time frame, meetings, grand openings, different things, events that we're at, meeting citizens, and just kind of getting ready for meetings and things of that nature.
Commissioner Baxter?
So the $5,371 is just the compensation, but that's without taking into consideration the $6,000, the price of the health insurance?
Correct.
Okay.
I didn't figure anything in.
Okay. Joe, could you go back a couple slides?
Sure. Well, I think that was the first slide.
Oh, whatever the slide was that gave the breakdown of the medical benefits.
Got it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baxter?
So I think that the combined compensation, just with my calculator sloppy math, rounds up to $12.28 per hour. And certainly if anyone out there is getting a different number, pipe up.
I mean, I went as far as broke it down to current.
Commissioner Miles?
Oh, sorry about that. What I did also, the current minimum wage, if we were to look at the current minimum wage, $7.25 per hour. There again, if we were working 80 hours a month at $7.25, you would basically look at $6,960 per year, which is only basically $1,588 more than what we currently make now. Then if we propose it for pretty much like the projected minimum wage that everybody's shooting for, which is $15 an hour, you're looking at basically, like I said, 12 months. We'll be making $14,400 per year, which is $9,028.70 more than we currently make. So that's just numbers.
Commissioner Baxter?
Could you just say that last part again?
Basically, that base pay would be $9,028.17 more than what we currently make now for a $15 per hour rate for us. at an 80-hour month. That's excluding your health care. The health care.
Commissioner Laux?
Crunching numbers.
Commissioner Harrison? Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Miles?
No.
Commissioner Baxter? Manager Moore?
Does the board have any direction for staff?
Commissioner Laux?
Thank you for the information and retreat item.
Commissioner Harrison?
Thank you for the information. I'm not really sure, where to go with the information, because understanding that we are public servants and we don't do this for pay or for salary. We do put a lot of time, we do put a lot of energy and effort into what we do, because we all love Zebulon and we love what we do here. So it's hard to look at these numbers, to look at those numbers and to know where to go from here for me. So thanks for the information.
Commissioner Clark?
Good information and probably...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Please speak.
It is good information, and we probably do need to, as Larry said, put it to a work session.
Retreat.
Or retreat. Well, retreat. Okay.
Commissioner Miles?
I like to piggyback what Commissioner Harrison said. We do it for the love of it. It's not about that pay, but I know the work, when I see my fellow commissioners as well as the mayor, now with the growth that we're having, we have to take into consideration. In order to do it right, you want the right people in the right place. We don't want to discourage future commissioners, those that potentially don't make the salaries where they can give this time, whatever it may be. So we just want to make sure that we kind of level the playing ground a little bit, where everybody can potentially, that wants to be a commissioner, do for the community on a different level, elected level, can have that opportunity. That's just compensation. And we look at the other municipalities. We know someday we're projected to be 18,000. So the closest to that is Nightdale. I mean, so we can kind of base that off long term. We can either do it that change now, or as we stated, or kind of look in the future. But I know it's something that has to be addressed in order so we can make sure as we grow, everybody has that opportunity to be a commissioner or whatever it may be in the future.
Absolutely.
Is there any way to find out, I guess, anecdotally, what the other towns, just how much estimated hours they are spending? How many meetings, how many sessions, or on an average, to maybe get some kind of estimate of just how much time a town of our size with similar growth, how much time they're putting into their development?
We can certainly inquire. I don't know how accurate the answer will be, because we will be inquiring just per protocol, talking to staff. And so we will be asking staff to answer on behalf of an elected official. Probably the more accurate information is from you all talking to your fellow elected officials to get a more accurate answer.
Commissioner Laux?
May I suggest that you possibly email the other mayors and ask the other mayors how many hours the mayor's working versus the commissioners? They should have a pretty good idea.
Commissioner Baxter?
This was actually a topic that I discussed quite in depth with several folks from different municipalities at the City Vision conference. And the general consensus was similar to what Commissioner Miles put forth, and that is if we want to have a diverse representation, we have to at least make the compensation thus that the people that are the elected officials and working to represent the best for the town are not having to dig into their pocket to make that happen. And I think that's fair. I know that a lot of us do it for the love of Zebulon. All of us do it for the love of Zebulon. But I do, like, it was something that I reflected upon. What different type of representation, who else would run for the board if they felt confident that they wouldn't be pulling money out of their own pocket in order to serve? So I think that it would be an interesting retreat topic for a later time. I think that actually there are going to be more and more towns that are revisiting compensation as we move forward and we consider where we are from an EDI standpoint. So it's okay if we lead the pack in things. Yeah. I don't know if we want to lead the pack here or not, but I think that it's worth thinking about and contemplating and maybe bringing it back.
Some municipalities made that a budget request. I know Wake Forest did, and they did across the board for the staff and for the elected officials. I think the mayor says she's getting a raise for the first time in 17 years. So, but it was through the budget process and whatever they were allowed to compensate their staff with, they also included the elected officials. So that's just a thought. Commissioner Miles?
I think it's important for those maybe watching, if we are on Facebook or whatever live, I think it's understanding that this is for us as elected officials. It's a very kind of like subject that you kind of like gingerly walk through talking about it as elected, because you don't want to be based that you're just looking for the pay compensation for it. But I know it's something that we have to address. So as Commissioner Baxter just put it, we can either address it now and kind of like be that pack leader and set the tempo, set the pace, or we can kind of sit back and kind of let it set its own tempo later on. But I think for us, seeing the board that we currently have, and I see my fellow commissioners as well as my mayor out there doing what we're doing, second fastest growing municipality in North Carolina, that's big. So we have a great responsibility right now to kind of continue to set the pace as we grow.
Any direction possibly from the league on this issue? League of Municipalities?
We can certainly inquire.
Commissioner Baxter?
A statement that I'm going to make for anybody watching, the folks at home, I don't think this conversation is about a huge pay increase. It's about a nominal one. And we are all very, very conscientious of how the town spends money. And this is not something that we are considering lightly.
Thank you. Comments? So we're saying discussion for later retreat?
And we will place it on an agenda for a future retreat. I will say it won't be your September 8th mini retreat, but a retreat beyond that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next.
What's going on over there? Snacky snack.
Whitley Galleries, Whitley Furniture, Building Encroachment Agreement, and Stormwater Easement.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. To bring you back up to speed, the owners of the existing Whitley Galleries is asking for an encroachment to essentially a paper street, a paper alley. to allow for the retention of the existing buildings. In return, is willing to provide stormwater easement on a vacant section of land further up on Van Street. Staff is available to answer any additional questions that you have. Additionally, the applicant, as well as the broker for the applicant, are available if you do have any questions.
Commissioner Baxter?
I believe that some distances were going to be measured, especially in regards to the concrete pad in relationship to where that falls with all of the other buildings and areas of encroachment.
Hi, I'm Mark Schwabens, resident of Wake County, broker for Whitley Furniture. Thank you all for being here. The measurements, I got a packet I can give to each one of you, or just give you the numbers, either way.
Let's do both.
Let's do both. Good idea. Here we go.
Thank you.
It's actually, pages are folded in half, so it's actually page 2. Measure the encroachments and then calculate. So on page 2, if you look at the notes, we have 247 square feet, which is a concrete pad on our last building. This drawing, for whatever reason, showed what appeared to be an encroachment on the lot, but that actually is not there. I crossed that out. So we have a concrete pad of 247 square feet. And then we have an encroachment that runs along about 6 properties. There's more properties than there are buildings. And that was somewhere around 290 some feet, but produced 2,340 square feet of encroached area. Excuse me? Yes, I do. Thank you. And then the easement that the town needs for this, the new stormwater easement is 4,725 square feet.
Mayor?
Commissioner Baxter?
Now, the concrete pad that's labeled at 247 square feet, that sticks out the furthest.
13 feet.
13
Yeah,
feet.
Everything else was 8.3 feet.
Okay, and so the actual encroachment that you're asking for is how many feet out? Is
The
it
combined total would be 2,587 square feet.
from the building going towards the railroad?
8.3 feet for the longer one, 13 feet for the pad you're talking about.
Okay, so you would just need, as far as the encroachment into the alleyway itself, not the square footage, but that distance to be about
Correct.
8.5 feet?
We measured it at 8.3, yes.
8.3
Yes.
feet, okay.
And then 13 feet down there at the end.
But the encroachment that you're asking for is to actually come 8.3 feet out, or are you asking?
8.3 on to the right side of your drawing?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be 13 feet to the left side of your drawing for the concrete pad.
I feel much more comfortable giving the encroachment on the 8.3 and asking, because we did have a conversation about, is that pad needed? And the answer was, not really. There's nothing that can happen on it. To ask for that pad to be removed so that we could just give the same amount of, distance from the building to the, towards the railroad.
I think that could easily make sense. I really
Okay.
do. I really do.
Okay.
So whether we shortened it or eliminated, I think that would be a fair request on your part. I think that makes sense.
That would give us the ability to have the same amount
Sure.
of space going down. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Laux,
I'm in agreement with that.
Harrison,
Yes, I'm in agreement as
Clark.
well.
Yes.
For me, taking a look at it, when we spoke, when we met earlier, I just wanted to get a kind of like I'm a numbers type, the financial aspect of it. If you could explain kind of like we did for the citizens watching, the monetary aspect of it, if you could, please, of that square footage, with the current rate that you're going with the selling of those buildings, just the square footage we're giving up. If you could do that just for numbers' sake. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Not exactly.
Okay, what I'm asking is currently the buildings are being sold for $89 a square foot. We're giving up 2,340 square feet. If you could kind of put that in numbers, you said during this meeting that you would have that for me, so I was expecting that, that's all.
I could calculate that in very quickly, what you just said.
Thank you.
At 2,500 feet, at $90, at $22,000, I think would be the number, if you wanted to look at it from that perspective.
Okay. And my next question.
Conversely, on the easement, there's much more land area, but the granting of the easement makes that property so you couldn't increase the building area on that easement. That's a significant reduction in value. But right now, the square footages are really 2 to 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I have one for Mike.
Yes.
In our meeting yesterday, I just wanted you to explain there again the win-win for the citizens of Zebulon, if you would, please.
Sure. Well, there's several factors that are involved here. First and foremost is in the proposed request, it's only allowing them to retain the existing structures in their existing capacity. Does not allow for them to extend into the area. This would allow for the sale and potential occupancy of these buildings. There was an analysis done in December of 2019 that indicated that vacant businesses, well, this particular case scenario indicated that the lost total taxable revenue for a region, and this not only includes lease agreements and everything else, but also salaries, additional spending for comparable businesses, translates to approximately $164,177 for approximately a 3,500 square foot restaurant. In this situation, we have 5 to 7 of these potential opportunities. So that's potential lost revenue in terms of businesses spending money with other businesses, employment. Additionally, with the closure of Whitley Galleries, there was several lost jobs. Without this encroachment agreement, the potential for those jobs to be regained within our municipality dwindles to almost zero. And then the third component is what the town is going to be gaining with this potential easement. The cost of these easements for stormwater drainage, as Mark mentioned, they're not going to be able to build anything on that. So that's indefinite lost possibilities for them. There's some outdoor activities they could do. They could put in a parking lot. One of the options is possibly a garden center. There's other outdoor activities that could still be tangible, but the actual construction of the building would not be able to occur. In return, for us to purchase an easement like this, that cost would be very substantial to the town. The proposed draft would allow for us to not incur those fees while allowing for a potential building owner to sell off these potential these tenant spaces, and that will bring in additional jobs, additional employment, as well as additional tax revenue for the town. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you. And then ultimately, staff is looking and recommending for adoption of Resolution 2023-03, which was included in your packet from the previous meeting on August 9th.
Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Baxter?
So according to the resolution, that is with the understanding that that concrete pad is going to be removed, since the concrete pad goes out more than 8.4 feet into, the alleyway.
That can be part of a motion, and I believe Eric's office has the original draft and can make those modifications as necessary.
Well, because I'm noticing that it says underneath the background, the encroachments varying from 1 foot to 8.4 feet have existed for more than 70 years, and then there's that pad, which is a little bit further out. And so it's my understanding that if we grant the resolution as written, that something will have to be done about that concrete pad. That's fine. You guys are okay with that? Do you have a question?
You need, you,
I'm Jay Estes. I'm one of the property owners. On the back of the first building,
It's this pad right here. Here's the corner building.
when the rail spur comes in off the main line, it doesn't turn left, then turn right and go parallel to the building. It has to angle. So that one pad is, the tracks are further out, and that pad had to be longer to reach the rail. And that one is in the back of the property where you want the easement. The rest of them are part of the buildings.
That's this one.
Yes, that is the one that is 135 West Fence. It depends. If you have your mono in your bottom right corner, then it would be on your bottom left, that loading dock that's sticking out.
Here's the
That is on the back of what used to be the Smith Douglas fertilizer warehouse, and they had to extend that to reach the boxcar to unload it because it was further to the line. That's correct. That one had to reach the spur because the spur came off the main line at an angle, so it had to be further out. So that one is it's a no use now.
So
it's not being used.
So it's not a problem to remove it, or?
I'm not a sole owner, but I mean,
Okay.
I just wanted to clear the difference between, which pad you were talking about. And while I'm here, I would like to thank everyone that made this possible tonight, because the time period between the meeting last week and now, it's amazing that the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. And thank you to the commissioners, you, Mr. Mayor, the town staff, everyone. Appreciate it.
thank you. Question?
I just have one
Mr. Miles?
one last question. So later on, we are doing activation alleyways. Someday, this alleyway potentially will be activated. That won't be an issue at all, correct?
The activation of this alley is going to be profoundly more difficult than the other alleys because it's a semi-active railroad line. So it's going to be a case-by-case scenario. We do still have ownership and retention of the remainder of it. Additionally, if they ever do demolition of the structures, they will not be able to re-encroach into this.
Okay.
Commissioner Baxter?
Yes?
Questions?
Would you like me to make a motion?
Questions, comments? Stiles? Hurst? Clark? Miles?
Yes, sir.
Does the board wish to take action on this topic tonight?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move.
Commissioner Commissioner Baxter?
He doesn't know who we are.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-03 with the understanding that the concrete pad located using the Newcomb Land Surveyor's map located behind building number 12 is to be removed.
Is there a second?
I second.
Discussion? Roll vote.
Approval?
Approval.
Commissioner Miles?
Approval.
Commissioner Baxter?
Yay!
Motion passes. Thank you, Mike.
Mayor, may we please have another 5 minutes? 2 minutes? Can you have 2 minutes, Mayor?
5-minute break. Success. convene. The agenda topics, resolution regarding dissemination of information, Town Board of Commissioners Rules and Procedure, and non-fraternization policy. Manager Moore?
This wasn't introduced by staff. I have nothing. I would defer to the commissioner who introduced it.
Commissioner Baxter?
Thank you. First, if it pleases the board, I'd like to enter into discussion about the non-fraternization update. According to our town manager, they are in the process of, it sounds like, redoing a lot of procedures and policies, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And I think that maybe we should just talk about, like, is this what is written here in accordance to what we would like to see when the manager brings all of the different policies before us.
Discussion? Commissioner Clark?
Wow.
I think maybe we need to wait and see what they have. To me, this has a little too much in it that I think could be questionable. So if we could compare and then discuss it then and see if we needed to add any of what's in here to what they have.
Commissioner Harrison?
I was actually going to say the same thing. I would like to compare them. I think that this is a great document. I've had a chance to look at it. I think it's a good document. Thank you for taking the time to put it together. But because I now know that the staff is working on updating all policies or of a number of policies and procedures, I would prefer to see what they have and compare it to what we have here, to add or subtract what we feel like we need to out of what is already being written. I just hate to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again.
Commissioner Laux?
Yeah, a couple comments. We did revise this policy a little over 2 years ago, and at the time we didn't know if that policy was strong enough. So a little history there. And number two, if you don't have a copy of the town HR policy manual, please get one and read it before our little mini retreat, because you may want to look at some other sections and see if they need to be adjusted or revised. So we're kind of doing this at the same time staff is doing it, so when we get together we can kind of compare our notes.
Commissioner Miles?
I'm on board with kind of waiting and then seeing what the staff has to offer. Just, is there a time frame on it, just to ensure that, make sure?
Yeah, our plan is your October work session.
Okay.
Commissioner Baxter?
I think that's fine. I would like to see from staff something that is similar to the amended non-fraternization policy, because I think that it adds a tool to the toolbox, and it clarifies. And so I have no problem holding off and waiting.
Commissioner Clark?
Do other municipalities in Wake County have a non-fraternization policy?
That's something that we can investigate, and that will be part of what we bring back.
Okay.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to kind of go along with what's been said, I would hope that this document will be totally vetted by our legal staff as we move forward to make sure that we are going in the right direction.
Absolutely. The only
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Baxter.
When my dad used to yell at us, he would say all of our wrong names, and then he would just call us Dutchie. Dutchie being his dog when he was a little boy. So if that's something you'd like to adopt, feel free.
It is not.
Sorry.
It's getting late.
No, it's time to go, girls.
The policy that I put together, the amendment to the policy, is just that, an amendment to what we already had with items that were being removed, stricken, and then any additions in the, with a green underline, just for clarification so that everybody knows what they're looking at.
Commissioner Miles?
One last statement for me. You said staff is in the process. Is there like, can you give a kind of like what you guys doing, just kind of what you're doing to write the policy? I'm just kind of curious on that, how that handles Joe. Like coming together.
Meaning to define the process more?
Correct. If you could, like if we're coming together, a group, is there like an outside source that you guys going to give you information, input on it? Or is this something that's done internally, just so I can get an understanding?
I would say both. The general principle is, as you've heard, we talked about a little bit with board compensation, we've got things that are not written down.
Okay.
Of the things that are written down, they're out of date.
Right.
And they need to be revisited.
Okay.
And if we need to, if we need to discuss that and come up with options internally, we're going to do that. If we need to reach out to outside experts, whether it be other municipalities or special consultants, we'll do that as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baxter?
My final statement regarding this, and like I said, it's fine that if we would like to revisit this, I feel very strongly that we need a much stronger non-fraternization policy so that we can avoid any problems or perceptions of problems in the future.
Okay.
Commissioner Hurst?
While I do agree that a fraternization policy is great to have at a place of employment, I think that realistically policing it is going to cause challenges. And I also want to say that when looking at a fraternization policy, writing one, as speaking from experience, I'm now married to the person I was fraternizing with, but we had to get approval to, so I don't know if that, so when my husband and I started dating, we worked together. There was a fraternization policy. And in order for us to date, there had to be a written request made to the president of our college that it was okay for us to date. So I don't know if something like that is even possible in this type of situation, but I think that policing adults on their, whatever they're doing, I think that's extreme for me, because I'm speaking from experience, in a sense that policing is going to be challenging, and to say, then you're fired, you're terminated. So I think that we should have something, especially as it relates to sexual harassment and workplace misconduct. But I would love to just see all of it put together. I think I'll leave it there. I would love to see it all put together. Yeah.
Mr. Hawks?
The policing thing can be difficult, but for example, the cell phone reimbursement policy should include something that a cell phone that's reimbursed is open for examination to make sure that the phone is in fact used for business and anything else. So that there are ways where you can do an investigation if you have questions. I mean, other companies go through this all the time. We deal with companies almost on a daily basis dealing with stuff like this.
Right. Sure. Commissioner Miles?
No, I think for me, just to piggyback off what Commissioner Harris said, the policing aspect, when I look at it from a sense of the town aspect, that liability for my citizens, that tax dollar. So if something goes wrong, yes, policing may be difficult, but if we have rules and regulations in place, we can do that if need be. So it's going to, there again, attacking that citizen. I just don't want us to encounter that sexual harassment or that whatever it may be.
Right.
Every job that I've had, that's from the military to the federal government, whatever it may be, they've had those things in place. We're growing down a rate too fast to be focused on stuff that, as you say, policing adults. We're fine, but we need to address that issue now as we grow. I think it's important.
Yes, and may I speak?
Commissioner Harrison?
And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a policy.
Right.
I'm just saying that I want us to be careful in the wording of our policy.
Gotcha.
So that it makes sense for, in case we have to take action.
Correct.
So I want us to make sure that as we're writing a fraternization policy, or if this is something that we are putting in place, that it makes sense and is something that we can in fact enforce. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we can't police it,
right,
because I would hate for our policing to be based off of what he said and she said.
Gotcha.
So I think that we need to be careful about what we put on paper if we are trying to put something on paper that's enforceable.
Okay.
Commissioner Baxter?
I thought I was done. Actually, maybe what I need to say is a closed session item. So I will not say it.
Any more questions, comments? So is it the consensus of the board to revisit this in our October work session? What's the date on that? I don't have it before me.
It'll be the third Thursday.
Third Thursday in October.
The 20th.
Can I make a recommendation that it be revisited when the policy is brought forward in case we do not make that date? And we're not prepared to bring the policy back to you in its entirety for review.
Could we not address this?
Commissioner Louds?
Yeah, could we not address this part in the HR manual? That way the whole manual wouldn't have to be done, but make sure this part's addressed.
Commissioner Miles?
I agree with that, and that gives it a timely manner where you don't have to kind of, we got to keep putting it off. This is of the urgency right here. I feel that each one, for her to bring it to it, I think it's something the urgency that we address now and go ahead and get it fast in a timely manner and not put it off again.
You already have a non-fraternization policy in there. Okay?
Commissioner Clark?
Oh, sorry.
That's what I said. You already have a non-fraternization in your policy. So I still think we should just wait till October when they bring it all together and we can compare it. I don't think it's that urgent.
Commissioner Baxter?
I am okay with discussing this, even if the rest of the components are not ready at the October 20th work session. So if I would ask staff to have that component at least prepared for us for discussion.
Commissioner Louds?
Totally agree.
Harrison?
That sounds good.
Clark?
That'll be okay.
Miles?
I agree.
We all agree that October work session, October 20th, to revisit the non-fraternization policy amendments. Next is the resolution regarding dissemination of information. Commissioner Baxter.
This is something that was actually has been vetted before by the town attorney, and actually some of the whereases have been removed entirely as they don't seem to apply anymore. And while I can understand the additional reporting components, what I'm trying to accomplish, and we can work on this, that's why we're here. Or we can talk about it later, that's also completely fine. I have felt before that I have asked the town manager for information and not received it, and asked again and not received it, and asked again and not received it. And so if we're not going to adopt this resolution, that's fine, but we need a policy and we need a procedure so that we can get the information that we request, not only get it, but get it in a timely fashion.
Commissioner Clark?
I understand that, and if we are doing a rules of procedure, would that article or, have some of this in there?
We could possibly look into that.
Okay. Because I still think there's a lot of questions that you just can't throw at one person to expect them to be answered in such a timely manner if all of us throw questions at him. So if there was some way to pull the questions together, or if we had to have another meeting every month for us to see what your questions are.
Carson? Laux?
Well, yeah, for example, when I have my monthly meeting with Joe, it is very informative, and information, I should say discussions, are going back and forth. Occasionally, I may ask for something that I really think is important enough that you all need to hear the answer. And for example, one of them was, a year or so ago, I was really curious with all of our subdivisions, exactly when were they approved, how many lots were approved, how many have been billed out, what's the tax revenue, because I was trying to keep up with our growth curve based upon houses. And I was getting the information from Joe quarterly on a sheet he provides, but it was kind of hard to pull out. And I was doing this because I had a lot of people in town ask me those questions, and I wanted to make it a real quick, easy spreadsheet to look at. And that was the type of information I ended up sharing with you. And there are some things you guys ask that I hear about that I didn't even think about that I really kind of would like to know the answer to. So it's just more educational than anything else. It's just an information flow.
Commissioner Baxter?
Oh, okay. I thought that you had something.
I did.
Just so for clarification, the third, be it resolved, does say that if a question can't be answered right away, that at least there's like some kind of time-bound agreement so that we know when to expect the information. I clearly do not expect every question that I fire off to get an immediate answer. But the questions that I have are ones that I truly think about and I believe will help me do my job better. And so I would like to have confidence and be able to know that I'm going to receive answers, even if not right away, that the answers will be forthcoming.
Commissioner Harrison?
I think that I don't want my monthly meetings documented and distributed out, because some of the stuff that I asked Joe, I don't want you guys to, sometimes I don't need you all to know what I'm asking Joe. Sometimes I might ask Joe something about something I don't necessarily want to share. So I don't want the meeting minutes recorded and distributed out amongst the board. Not that I'm asking something that is inappropriate or wrong, but I just don't think that him taking notes and distributing notes of our monthly meeting is necessary. Also, I believe that there does need to be some type of stipulation put on how we get the information back in a timely manner. I do agree with that. However, I want to be realistic and understanding that he's one person, and while he has a department of people and he has other people that works for him and helps him get some of the answers to our questions, I want to be realistic and understanding that he is our town manager, and he is working towards trying to get us our answers, but he's also answering to 5, 6 people at a time. So I want to be fair, but at the same time, I do want to receive the information. So I think that this is a document that we could work on more. I'm not saying absolutely not, we shouldn't do this, but I think it's something that we need to work on and maybe look at so that we can make it make sense. And of course, everybody may not agree with everything I'm saying. I may not agree with everything that you're saying, but at least let's look at it a little bit more so that it makes sense and that it's fair, not only to Joe, but also to our department heads.
Commissioner Laws. Commissioner Miles.
I agree with what you're saying, Commissioner Harrison, but I'll give you an example. One example comes to mind real fast, something that those things that we say that they are important to us, i.e. that was doing where COVID is still here, that online meeting aspect of it, being able to do virtual meetings. All of us were dead set on that. We never heard from that, anything else back from that. Now, but we can see the resolution stuck on the door that it's about to end. So that's just one example. We're not asking, we know he's in high demand. He's like us all. We're in high demand. If we're doing our job, everybody sitting here now is in high demand. But it's an aspect of us, just those things that we really are important about, that's important. For me, COVID was one of those things. And it's, like I said, not to get an answer back. Many days I sat there, didn't want to go out to come to this meeting, but I was like, okay, I'm impressed. This is bigger than me. This is about the people. So I'll take that for that bullet. If it means COVID coming my door, I'll take it for the bullet for the team, for the citizens of Zebulon. That's what I was elected to do. But those things are a topic of importance. I think that's what Commissioner Baxter is getting at. Those things that really, as Commissioner Laus just said, those numbers he wanted, because his constituents are asking, hey, what are those numbers? We have to get back to those people. And I understand. If it means us getting an assistant town manager, let's do it. That's the things we put before us. And we have been elected to do that. Let's just do our job and get that if we need that. If he needs that help, we ask him if he needs that help. We get that help for him. That's what we're here for. So it's just that simple for me. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Harris.
Jesus. Absolutely. I feel like I almost got a whooping just now. Absolutely. I agree with everything you just said, Commissioner Miles. However, I want to, when citizens come up, they're posting online, they're making comments. A lot of times it takes so much work to get things done, and everyone doesn't quite understand the totality of what it takes to get these things done. And so then we're bombarded with these questions on when is this going to get done? How is this going to get done? And they're valid questions and great points, but there's so much work behind the scenes that has to take place before we can even give them an answer. And so I feel like it's the same case in the same situation sometimes with the questions that we're asking. So yes, we need to get a response to say, well, I can't answer this question right now because it's a whole lot of work that goes into play even answer this question. But we need to get that. Like, we do need to get that. But I don't know that we can get that by saying, well, we need that in 2 weeks. So when I say that, I'm just saying that I want us to understand and to be realistic with what it may take behind the scenes to answer some of our questions. Because just like when we go out in the community, the citizens may not know what it's taken. Maybe we don't know all that it's taken to get the answers to these questions, but that needs to be communicated as well. So.
Commissioner Miles?
I agree with what you're saying, but in full disclosure, in Joseph's defense, I just was in a meeting with him and Mike on Wednesday, and one thing he did, that reassurance sometimes to know that if I'm caught in a situation, I'm that person, Commissioner, I don't like the him and all, I don't know the answer type thing, can be put on the spot, but he also gave the assurance that, as he stated, I do just like he did, I'm at that phone call. So I will get the defense, you know what I'm saying? So I know he's working towards that aspect of it. It's not going unseen, so I want you to know that person.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baxter.
So I think what this discussion has brought out is that there's some information that we want, and that some of it is more emergent than others. And I think that it's fair for us to proceed forward, maybe not tonight, but at some point, figuring out how that's going to happen and to make sure that we set some parameters so that, you know, even though my resolution said that if it couldn't happen by the end of the month, we would figure out a time when it could happen. That can be something that is set as part of the parameters down the line, but I appreciate everyone entering into conversation about this right now because I think that we need to have this discussion.
Commissioner Clark?
And I agree with you there. I do not like the way it said resolution. I prefer it be a policy or added to your procedures.
That was just,
That was just.
that.
Commissioner Clark?
I'm waiting for her.
Commissioner Laus?
All right, tied in with this is not only the information flow, but then I look at project flow as well. And case in point, I wanted a weather camera in front of the town hall since I was elected almost 3 years ago. And I know Mayor Matheny wanted a weather camera on the town hall years before I got here. We did approve it in the budget, and Christmas time is a few months away, and this place is absolutely beautiful with the Christmas lights. So to help promote the city, I would like to see that project done very quickly, not June 30th of next summer, but as in like the next 6 weeks, because we will get a lot of good coverage with that view on the TV stations. And to me, that's important.
Here's one thing that I've been thinking about in discussion is that we prioritize what we want as a board, maybe on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever, we can figure that out. But a list of topics that we want to have prioritized and time frame completed on a certain date. Because I don't think we can put everything at the top.
Oh, no.
But it has to, I think something of that nature or whatever, we can put it on a prioritized list and say, we want to have this done by whatever. If it's a general consensus, then we move forward with that. Commissioner Clark?
No, it can go, doesn't it? It's not relevant right now.
Commissioner Miles?
No, I'm fine, sir.
Commissioner Baxter?
So what I am understanding is that we're going to revisit this at some other time, and not necessarily this resolution, but that issue. And while I have the mic, I called it I talked to Eric about it. We just kind of worked through it. And so I wasn't trying to make it a resolution or policy. It was just something that we talked about, and that's what we arrived upon as a starting point for a conversation, which is what we've had. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Commissioner Clark?
And so I think it probably could be put into with our procedures. Thank you.
Is that a general consensus? Procedures?
I can.
So I guess what I'm hearing is we want to bring this back with the, we're working on procedures policy at some point, at a date?
Yeah, the plan is to bring you back templates from both Wake County and I want to say it's Faison, as for you all to start a conversation, and that's scheduled for your September work session.
September work session.
Okay. Is everyone in agreement with bringing this back to our September work session?
Yes.
What date is that on?
September 8th?
That's the third Thursday. I want to say the
September
15th.
It is scheduled for September 15th, and I was going to bring up tonight, I will not be able to make that meeting. I have an engagement I can't get out of that's NC State related, So I was going to ask if we could move that work session earlier in the week, either the 13th or 14th, which would be a Tuesday or Wednesday, rather than Thursday, the 15th.
Do we want to discuss that now?
Just information we can discuss later.
Yeah, I think that's, you've got that, you got your town board meeting on the 12th. And so, that's, if you can't do it the 15th, I wouldn't run it any closer to the board meeting. I would take it out. I don't know how it would work with the staff too. Let's see what they have to say.
Manager Moore?
Yeah, I'll just provide a specific comment and then a general comment for you all to consider. The specific comment is we make arrangements for speakers to come in, and we have a speaker coming in, and this speaker we've already rescheduled twice. I'm not sure that we can get them back again. That's just for you to be aware of that. That's something we're going to have to look into.
For the 15th?
Yes.
Okay.
The general comment that I'll make, and this is just something for you to be aware of, the general statutes, they are written in a way that your constituents, when they empower you with tremendous power that they've empowered you, that they get a sense of transparency. And one way to get that transparency is they know when you meet, that you meet a regular cycle. And that's why your regular meeting is called a regular meeting. So just be aware that when you switch a meeting date, your regular meeting from the first Monday, or you switch a work session from the third Thursday, just be aware that your constituents are used to a regular schedule, and it's just something to think about. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of the retirement, but I just wanted to make you aware of those two things. We got some logistical things, and you all have some transparency commitments per the general statutes.
Commissioner Baxter?
Commissioner Laux, may I divulge why you are unavailable?
I have a senior management meeting that's being held in Wrightsville Beach with our statewide directors, and they have decided they're going to do my retirement party after 30 years with the university on that Thursday night because all the statewide directors will be there.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. So it's kind of beyond my control, and it is a 30-year retirement.
So, but it's for our,
Commissioner
it is
Baxter?
for our, oh, sorry. It is for our work session that you won't be available. And so potentially you could view it either at a later date or less likely peel yourself away from your retirement party to view online.
Well, if I have the agenda well in advance, I can present my written comments that can be read or brought up at the meeting. I can't participate in the discussion, but I can give you my viewpoints beforehand.
I like that.
And let's make clear that if you're not, and we vote on it, you'll vote. You won't be able to vote.
That's correct.
Just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, if you decide, if you vote that night,
if we
right.
decide to. Commissioner Clark.
But we usually don't vote at work sessions. We usually plan that ahead of time, so I think, now that we know he's gone, we would not do that.
Right, yeah.
Commissioner Miles?
No comments.
Commissioner Baxter?
I'm good. Are we moving on to the next one? Are we?
We're still discussing.
Oh, well, I'm absolutely fine with Larry retiring. Congratulations.
Yeah, I wish I could go.
Are we invited?
Then no, you can't go.
The next item, Town of Zebulon Board of Commissioners Rules and Procedure. Commissioner Baxter?
Okay, so actually, when there was first some discussion knocked around about bringing before us some rules of procedure. Some were actually presented to us, and I relied heavily on those when I created this document. The only thing changed from that document, and I referenced a few other documents, was in reference to the agenda section. And this is actually more in alignment with how Wake County deals with their agenda. I'm not sure what their policies and procedures are, but I actually talked to several of the Wake County commissioners and have it on very good authority that this is more in alignment than with the first document that we were presented with. I am absolutely fine to just submit this to you all for your perusal and eventual discussion at a later date. But I did put it together, so I wanted to present it and let you know that the changes that were the largest ones were to get the rules of procedure in better alignment with Wake County.
Thank you.
Discussion. Commissioner Clark?
But this too will be, the town is also working on a procedural manner. So we will be working it together, looking at it together. Okay.
Sure.
Just wanted to.
Yeah, why not?
I thought we had mentioned that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Laux?
Good.
Commissioner Harrison? Commissioner Miles?
I'm good.
So we're saying that we're bringing this back with the procedures policy.
Yes, sir, at your September work session.
Are we in agreement, Commissioner Laux? Harrison? Clark?
Yes.
Miles?
Yes.
Baxter?
Yep.
So we'll bring this issue back to our September 15th work session.
And to the September 15th, at your regular meeting, we'll revisit your options on the 15th. I didn't want to appear as though that it wasn't here in Commissioner Laux, but we'll see what options are. Anyway, I need to talk to Eric about participation, but we'll look at all options to make that possible.
Any further discussion? Well, I just want to congratulate Commissioner Laux on 30 years with the state of North Carolina.
A lot of Monday mornings.
Gosh. The Order of the Longleaf Pine.
60-hour weeks, yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else to call our attention? I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So, I was getting, you were jumping it. Okay. It's been made.
We got a motion from Commissioner Clark. Second, Commissioner Laux. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
A little punchy.